Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids. Nice of you to pop in, Mr. Grizzly.
I don't know
And
what
welcome
happened.
Neither. That's not what I was expecting to see. I was going, oh, there's half a screen. Good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Shadoop, shadoop, boo, boo, yeah. Today, recording day is Friday. Thank God I'm Friday. March 1st, 2024.
Oh shit.
Yes, new month. Because of February, the remix, because we had an extra day, has now come and gone. We hope that everybody had a fun leap day, especially you, Kit Mohan, because you actually had a birthday on your birthday. Yay! See, Kid James says Douglas looks like he's playing Gowan in an off-Broadway play. I am doon 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 doon. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and with me as always is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. And if you were taking bets on the hair, it is down today, as you can all see, of course, but for people who are listening, I figured I'd let you in on that. We have our normal Friday remix show, but Mr. Grizzly, before we do anything else, let's ask you how your mental health is doing today, sir.
The jury's out on that right now. I'm not fully awake. I've been tossing and turning all night and just feel like a zombie. So I honestly couldn't tell you right now. I'm on my first cup of coffee. I'm really tired, and I have a long day ahead of me. I have to be in the office at noon today, as I have prepare for a weekend meeting. I'm not working at it on the weekends. I just prep it for them. So anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh my,
I'm not there yet.
Gee, kids. Wow, thank you. I've got schmexy hair, apparently. Good morning to the kids who are watching. Kit Elaine, Kit Donna, Kit Carol. I'm not sure if Carol is a new name for us, but if you are, welcome to the Beaver Lodge. Kit Mystic Al, Kit Mohan. Hey there, my friend. Miss Shadika, hello. Lovely to see you. It was, Mohan answered, it was his 11th birthday yesterday. Good morning, Kit Pasta Gabe. Hello, nice to see you. I think it's been a while. Good morning, Kit Jillian, Kit Hugh. Yes, Gowan's the Boston concert, definitely. I've actually seen him in concert, and actually something weird happened. It was one of those free concerts back in the day that they used to have, like at the fairs and something. And I guess people were pushing and they were crushing people against the metal fencing that they had in front. Yeah, so like, but I was completely fine, but I guess some security guards thought that something weird was happening because at one point, just out of the blue, somebody came and grabbed me from under and like lifted me over the fence, and then I was like, why did I get pulled out? I was fine, but I guess people were complaining of being crushed.
Hmm.
And they thought it was happening, so yeah, I got pulled out and we passed under the stage. And as we were under the stage, Gowan Joe was on top of his piano for one of his songs,
Hmm.
like standing on top, and then he jumped on the stage and he literally jumped like over my head, like. Because, but unfortunately, when they do that, then they take you, and then you get to go, and then all of a sudden, they pulled me out of the crowd, and all of a sudden, I was in the back of the crowd when I was right in front row. So that kind of sucked. I mean, if I had been being crushed, I would have been very grateful, but I was quite
Hmm.
fine.
I think I saw him in 1986 in Chicoutimi, and about a month later, I saw Metallica. Yeah, in '86.
Yeah.
On the it was it the Ride the Light? No, it was the Master of Puppets tour.
Ah, yes. Who else do we have with us this morning? Good morning, Kit Toronto Dan. Good morning, Kit Cassie. Good morning. Let's see, Kit James that we mentioned before. Good morning, Kit Vim. Good morning, Kit. Good morning, Kit Sean. Nice to see you, PNC Bio. Thank you for joining us. Oh my God, the gang's all here. Kit Saucy, Kit Jim, Kit Taffy G, Kit Jen, Kit Mike H. I think this might be the longest Romper Room look into the mirror that I've done since we've started doing the show.
If you scan that QR code, if you're watching on any of the multiple platforms, that'll take you straight to our YouTube page where you can join in the Damn Fam chat.
There
So
we
that's
go.
why that's up there, and we'll leave it up there for a bit. So anybody wants to scan it, you can join right into the YouTube channel, our personal YouTube media channel, and there's where you'll be able to join in the Damn Fam chat.
All right. And good morning, Tim, and good morning, Kit Linda M, and good morning, Kit Ina. And I think I've got everyone. If I missed you, I'm so very sorry. But thank you for joining us. Oh, I'm so happy. Yes, my mood
Kingston
is
Trio.
better.
The Kingston Trio.
Cub is
Okay.
too rowdy. Good morning, Kit Michael. I am, yes, a damn fine, damn fam to boot, Kit Hugh. You are absolutely correct. Yes, my mood is better. Thank you very much. A lot of that has to do because of you and my friends and people who took some time to chat with me. Good morning, Kit Nona. And yeah, I mean, still a little bit in mourning, but like I said a couple of days ago, right? Can't go over it, can't go under it, got to go around it, got to go through it. Went through it. Um, not so much angry now, just sort of a little sad. But I let everybody know yesterday that if they did buy tickets indeed to come and see me and As You Like It, that they're going to be a little disappointed because I had to pull out. So now everybody knows. And yeah, that's not an easy one to write.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm no longer in the show, people. So but hey, that's okay. That's okay. This I'm still working on. Yes, I just quoted the "Going on a Bear Hunt" song. Get Shattuck. That's exactly where I get it from.
I don't know what that is, but sure.
Oh, going on a bear hunt, going on a bear hunt, gonna catch a big one, gonna catch a big one. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. Ooh. And then it's sort of like some type of obstacle, big lake or something. It's like, can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. I guess I gotta swim through it. And the song just keeps going and going and going. But yes,
Kind of like
I
the
think
song that
it's a
never
Cub
ends.
Count song. Which song?
Song that never ends.
Basically, so long as you can find obstacles, you can be on that bear hunt for a long time. I went on a bear hunt. I caught me a grizzly a couple of years ago.
Mm. I got a funny thing to start the day, which I think is pretty good because this is cute. This is from Theo Medakis. Somebody writes in, Theo, what are your favorite and least favorite cartoons you've made throughout your career? And Theo responds with, my favorite cartoons are always Polyef cartoons because the Pianon cult gets so insanely, ridiculously enraged that I feel like a supervillain. And I like that feeling.
It always works better when you throw your head back too.
Yes. That was the time when we throw our heads back and laugh.
That's the mocking one.
Yes.
And then there's the evil one.
I think to be truly evil, you got to do one of these. You tilt
Yes.
down and you look through your forehead and you go.
Love it.
And then they usually soil themselves. Like I'm driving along, I pick up a hitchhiker and pull over and just open the door. He gets in, close the door and drive for 20 minutes. Don't look at them. And then after 20 minutes, you just turn and go, so how far did you think you were going? That's not my original joke. That was from, I can't remember the name of I can't remember the comedian who came up with that. But anyway, all credit goes to that person. I just can't remember who the name of the person. I saw that about 30 years ago.
That would freak me the F out.
and Stephen was the guy who was talking. I got a friend named Weird Larry. He works at an AM radio station. Every time he walks under a bridge, you can't hear anything he says. Stephen Best or Stephen? I can't remember his name.
Yes, the guy. Yes. Stephen Hotz?
No, Jeremy Hotz. Stephen.
No, Jeremy Hotz. Oh, the other guy. Yeah, who does that? Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of balding, but his hair's really curly. And he never,
exactly.
His voice his cadence is always so
super monotone and low.
I got the other day.
Stephen Wright.
Stephen Wright, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kit Mystical.
I was walking home the other day, and when I got to my house, I put my car keys in. It opened the door. It started up, so I drove it around the block. I got pulled over by the police. They said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Right here."
I love it. All right, Kits. Well, in the news, unless you've been living under a rock, the big news that happened sometime yesterday afternoon is that we found out that a former prime minister has passed on. Once Prime Minister Brian Mulroney died yesterday, apparently following a fall, surrounded by family. I don't think it was like necessarily immediately after a fall, but there was a fall, and then often sometimes when people have a fall, then a series of things then happen, and it can lead to someone's death.
Especially as a senior, I just talked about an article about that yesterday in the Citizen, written by a health reporter. Talked about how her father had a fall, and then that was it. He did not too long after he perished, and there is. Here's another thing I want to share with you. This is Senator Patrick Brazeau, and he says, when I was 10 years old, 1984, I got to shake PM Mulroney's hand while on Parliament Hill. From that day forward, I followed politics. May he rest in peace. And there's a picture of the two of them together.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like for me, Brian Mulroney is the first prime minister in my lifetime that I remember. I know that Joe Clark was prime minister while I was alive, and so was Pierre Elliott Trudeau, but I wasn't politically aware or consciously aware. So the first prime minister of which I was aware was Brian Mulroney, and the first vote I ever cast was the election that after he resigned in 1993, election that Kim Campbell ran in. But yes, Brian Mulroney died at 84. It's kind of interesting to try and talk about him because one of the things about Brian Mulroney for which I had a lot of respect is that he was a man that liked to do things for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
He brought in the GST, which a lot of people hated, and brought it in at not a particularly good time, which made it such that his party took a hit. But it was the right thing to do.
I don't know what happened.
To get rid of the manufacturer's sales tax, which was hidden, and then make a tax transparent, and then make it on stuff that you consume, which makes it a tax that you can decide how much you pay or don't by determining how much you want to consume, a bit like carbon taxes or carbon regulatory fees. depending on the amount of carbon you choose to consume, that's how much tax you pay. So, and it was, the GST being in existence was pretty much critical to Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin being able to do their thing to bring our public finances back in order. So it's a hated tax, but nobody likes tax anyway. But it's a good tax. If you're going to say that there's a good tax and there's bad taxes or better taxes or whatnot, but it was a good tax, economically speaking. And he did try to bring the nation together constitutionally, with Meech Lake, which unfortunately failed, and then the Charlottetown Accords, which again unfortunately failed because it could have resolved a lot of constitutional issues. And but he tried big things, even though they failed. And then he brought in free trade. I remember that election. I was aware for that election because I remember that debate. I remember the debate with John Turner. I remember watching that one, but I was too young to vote. And I think, whether free trade was the right decision or wasn't, I mean, you won't be able to argue the counterfactual because we did it, and we don't have a parallel universe where we didn't do it to know. We went from a nation that was pretty divided on it to a nation that is pretty much bought into it, as given by the serious lack of objection to anything that happened when we were negotiating NAFTA 2.
Yeah.
There wasn't much vocal opposition. It was sort of like, there wasn't like this huge camp going on saying, no, don't renegotiate it, scrap it. Everybody was saying, yeah, let's negotiate it, let's make it better. So he did, important things. And then, in addition to that, there was, the deal he made on acid rain, which gave us the template for, what we did global, worldwide on ozone. We were talking about the ozone layer, and there was the big hole in it. And, we did similar things that what we did for acid rain in Canada, but we did it globally. And now the hole in the ozone layer has repaired itself, and it's the same thing we need to do for GHG reductions. But for some reason, all of a sudden, the things that we've done in the past that have worked for us, conservatives in particular, don't believe they can work for this type of stuff when we know they can because we have done it before. Right. So, and yes, you're right. That's exactly where I was going, Kit Michael. Let's not forget to talk about apartheid.
Yes.
As well. Like, as you keep on mentioning, it started with Joe Clark, but Brian Mulroney is the one that saw it through, and he saw it through by taking a pretty big stand.
He did.
Against Margaret Thatcher. In a time where we didn't necessarily view Canada as a country that would go its own way on a matter of international importance like that. We're normally a country, we could normally be relied upon almost like 95% of the time to do whatever the UK does or whatever the United States does. That's why that on apartheid, and when Jacques Chrétien, when he was prime minister, said, nope, we are not doing Iraq.
Turns out it was,
yes,
a wise decision.
Yes, but turns out that these are seminal moments in Canadian politics because they are the few moments where we showed that, no, we do have an independent foreign policy, and no, telling our bigger allies, no, you're wrong.
And at the time I thought it was the wrong move on his part. Somebody said, I think he has more information than you do. I'm like, you're right. Okay. You're right. Yeah.
Which one, Iraq or?
Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really proud that he hadn't too, because I was watching what was going on in the United States, and I couldn't tell what it was. I had no idea what it was, but it just didn't strike me as right. It struck me as that something was missing, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And you have to remember, in the United States, I think among the Senate, I think it was, or the House, everybody voted for it except for one person, Barbara Boxer. She's looking pretty good today, isn't she?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
Well, why don't we let's discuss this a little bit further and in detail with somebody who would know about these things. I'm specifically talking about battlefield type stuff. And bring our friend in from all the way from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where it is 5:30 in the morning.
Eeh.
This is a true
Rise and
soldier.
shine.
This is our
Yes.
buddy, Army Kris. Buddy.
Hey.
What's going on, guys?
a little tired, my friend.
It is the middle of the night, Mountain Standard Time.
Ooh, those are tiny eyes.
Yeah.
But you're looking good for 5:30 in the morning.
This is the
gotta
first
say.
time I've ever been on a podcast with coffee.
Oh, really? Usually it's a pint, right? Yeah, coffee.
How you guys doing?
Good. We're just
Good.
I'm sure you could hear us. We're just talking about how Jean Chrétien made the bold move at the time to not send us into Iraq.
That's
And,
one of the smartest decisions that man ever made.
I mean, really, in
100%.
hindsight, we're like, he got that one right.
I mean, we supported the first Desert Storm.
Yes. Yeah.
We had an air base called Canada Dry 1.
Really?
Yep. We sent Air Force F-18s, and we sent a battle group of from the Royal Canadian Regiment from out of Ontario.
Didn't we send a couple of frigates there as well?
Yes, we also had boats floating around in the Gulf. So that was a thing. And that was, the extent of our support to Desert Storm. But staying out of that whole thing was definitely the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the right call. It really
100%.
was. And I remember at the time thinking like, oh, this isn't good. We're abandoning our American cousins. And it was like, just saying, somebody had said to me, yeah, but Paul, I think the Prime Minister might have information that you're not privy to.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
You'd hope.
Yeah, especially to make that bold a decision.
He wasn't on Twitter then. So
Yeah.
we gotta go to war. You guys reading this shit?
Which way is the wind blowing today? Oh, maybe we'll go to war.
Pretty much.
Oh man. Do you have any thoughts on Prime Minister Brian Mulroney?
Yeah, he just passed away last night, huh?
Did he?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't even know, did you? Yeah. I woke up
No.
to it. It happened around, I think, 6 p.m. or something. I didn't know
Yeah.
about it till this morning.
How old was he?
84.
That's a good run,
Yeah, it's a good
isn't it? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
What was his? What happened? Like, was he sick?
He had a series of ailments, going on. So, but apparently he had a fall at one point, and then one thing led to another.
Oh well, that is unfortunate. I
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not a political guy. I guess I am a little more today.
Mhm.
But back then, like most, I'm not speaking for every member of the military or former member of the military, was really irrelevant to me.
Mhm.
Politics doesn't matter. It's so the military is basically an extension of political will and the practical application of foreign policy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who's in charge. Tell me what you want us to go do. Make sure we're resourced to do it,
Mhm.
and then we'll go do it, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I didn't like back then. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to Mulroney politics.
Yeah. No, but I understand what you're saying, because you might not care for what they're telling you to do, but you're like, no, that's my job. I'll just go and do it.
Pretty much.
You when you sign on the dotted line, you sign a contract with the country, with the nation.
It's funny. It's actually a solid line. I've never seen a dotted line.
Right?
You know what? You're right.
But
we
there is
always
a
say the
line.
dotted line.
Yeah.
Must have been back in the day when maybe when people were typing back in the day rather than using
It
the
could be
underscore all the way
that.
through. They just put
Yeah.
dot.
There's a history behind that. But I can
There
tell
has
you
to be
this
something.
much. Like, by the halfway through my second deployment to Afghanistan, I was like, this isn't going to end good.
Yeah. Yeah, you did 2 tours or 3?
2 there.
Yeah.
I did Bosnia, Afghanistan, Cyprus. 2
Wow.
tours in Afghanistan, and it was like, I don't think this is going to end well. I don't think this is a really good plan here. And it wasn't a Canada problem. It was the whole global approach to it. The International Security Assistance Force, and it was like, and when shit went sideways, after the Taliban took over, all the shit chucking started between countries.
Yeah.
about whose fault it was. It's like, what are you talking about? It's a collective fault, it's collective failure. So that sucks. Anyway, why are you guys talking about Iraq? I clearly jumped in late.
Well, it's just because we were talking about, how some of the things that former prime ministers' decisions they had made, like we were talking about how it was Brian Mulroney who saw the end of apartheid in South Africa, and Jean Chrétien who decided not to bring us into the Iraq War, and that's how we got here.
Yeah, no, that's a fair topic.
Yeah.
I didn't hate Chrétien as much as I thought I would.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's well, and this one here from you, military axiom number 1: don't invade Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Let me tell you guys a story. So, in preparation to go to Afghanistan, we bring a lot of people in to advise and guide, and they sent this Russian tank commander who was there during the Soviet invasion or occupation, whatever you want to call it, the Soviet campaign in Afghanistan in the 80s. And their intent was this guy was going to provide words of wisdom. And basically he showed up and he goes, don't go there.
Just don't go.
and all the military brass is like, get this guy out of here. No, he said, don't go there. It's a bad idea. And I read a book called The Bear Went Over the Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of reading prior to both deployments.
Right.
I like to know what I'm getting into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not just the fucking what they tell me. I want to know everything before I go anywhere. And so that book was a series of vignettes, if you will, written by Russian military officers.
Right.
This, and this. And as I'm reading this book, I realize like we're doing the same thing. We literally went to the same bases, Bagram Airfield, Kandahar Airfield, where there's like Soviet crap lying around that place as you drive into them. It's like we're doing
the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over
100%,
again,
100%. We're literally doing the same friggin' thing that they did in the 80s, and they failed. And there's nothing but, as you go further north in that country, there's just tons of abandoned Russian armor, like tanks, armored personnel carriers, and I think the Chinese government wanted to buy it, and the Afghan government at the time said, "No, we're not selling this stuff. This is a reminder to anybody that comes here: don't come here.
Yeah,
don't come here and fuck around because you're not going to win." And it's crazy. And the further north you go, from Kabul north, there's just tons of abandoned Russian equipment. They just, like, when they left, they just left. They dropped everything and got out.
Wow. Just hightailed it. Kind of like,
and they were
like
right.
The fall of Saigon. There was so much military armor left in Vietnam, right?
They were just dumping helicopters off the side of aircraft carriers. Like, we're out.
Literally pushing them off.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, what? You were just throwing helicopters into the ocean, and yet they did it.
Yeah. Well, the Americans left behind a ton of equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Taliban is very well equipped right now.
Yeah, really.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was the one thing I always wondered about the pullout. I don't know much about military strategy and all that type of stuff, but it's always stupid to turn around and say, "Okay, everybody, on this day we're pulling out." Okay, well, just like tell everybody to lie and wait for that day. And
yeah, I'm not a Trumper, but Joe Biden screwed that up big time.
Oh yeah. And then how do you, why would you leave all of that stuff there? Right? I mean, it just makes it easy for other people to use it or take it apart and reverse engineer it, or why would you leave it? I never understood. It's like we're talking about billions of dollars of equipment and stuff. I mean, if you were under siege and everybody was coming, run for your lives. But if you have time to actually plan a pullout,
they're not.
Why would you leave the stuff?
They can't use half that equipment anyway. Well, no. So
yes,
it's you can leave an M1 Abrams tank there, but at the end of the day, there's something called Blue Force Tracker on it. So if the Taliban's suddenly running around with all this equipment, the Americans get satellites, can see where all of it is.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then number 2 is you can't order an engine on Amazon for an M1 Abrams tank. So
true.
When shit starts to break down, they have no means to
repair
fix it.
Yeah.
Other than if they can use the Canadian military approach and like take engines out of this one to make this one work. If you got 3 tanks, you got one that works, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So,
indeed.
and then, they can't get 120 millimeter ammunition for it. So it's like, okay, we left a lot of stuff over there, or the Americans left a lot of stuff over there. But is
Yeah.
that a risk to anybody? Not really.
No.
Okay, good.
That
That's
makes
something I always wondered.
Not really.
Okay, cool. Good stuff. Oh man. So yeah, it's
Thank God it's early.
so yeah, with Mulroney, that's there's all the good stuff, and then of course there's all the stuff with him allegedly or having been on the take with the money,
Yeah.
Ooh,
Envelopes
go
of
on.
cash.
money in envelopes for there was the Airbus scandal, so it was purchasing of airplanes, and it seems that there was maybe some money that changed hands in order to make sure that a certain corporation got that contract. And then,
Oh, that happens all the time, though. Like you could pin that on anybody, any given prime minister.
that's what I keep on saying on the show. There's a bit of for democracy, there's always a bit of a grease tax
Yeah,
that's going to be
100%.
happening.
period.
I was happy we got that Airbus.
Mm.
I flew to
Yep.
Cyprus in 1992. My first deployment was to Cyprus, which is a big beach party. And we flew on this white UN 707 that was built in like 1903 or something.
Yeah.
It was falling apart in flight. And
707s. I mean, they retired those in like 1970. I think.
I know we flew over there in 92 and this, and like there was like ice forming inside the thing, and this guy's seat in front of me reclined, but it wouldn't go up. So I had buddy's head in my lap the entire flight.
Jeez.
Another seat fell out in the aisle. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. And he almost put it in the Mediterranean Sea while we were landing in Larnaca. And then on the way out, the Airbus was brand new.
Oh,
We still had
so-
we were taking the plastic off the seats. It smelled like
Oh,
a new
wow.
car. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that whole scandal about money and all that shit. There's a couple other things, military contracts that happened in the Mulroney era that you're like, why do we have this?
Mhm.
Oh, his buddy owns this company, Western Star
Yeah.
or whoever it was. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
that was shit back then.
That happens a lot, sort of nepotism, right? You'll see
Mm-hmm.
we need a new contract for this, and all of a sudden so-and-so's friend gets a piece of the action. They all do it.
I'll tell you
Every
what, though.
single one of them.
The procurement process for military purchasing is a nightmare and it needs to change.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed.
Standard cycle to buy anything is 8 years. So if we want something now, other than the M777 howitzer, but we made a little drug deal with Americans on that one.
Yeah.
It takes pretty much 8 years to procure anything from the bid process. So let's say I need a new widget. You two guys are a company.
Mhm.
You submit a proposal in response to an RFP, request for a proposal. It gets reviewed. The tender process takes X long. Oh, wait a minute. We select this guy. But, okay, Paul, you get to grieve it and try
Mhm.
again.
Yeah.
Then there's trials and evaluations. And we like try out whatever you made me, the widget. And we try out this widget in the winter, in the desert, and all these places. And then figure out all the problems with it. And then it eventually rolls out. This is a very condensed version of this, but it takes 8 years typically under the current process.
And that's pathetic when you consider today so much product armament is computer based, and it's like, yeah, okay, now we're using software that's 8 years old. That
Well, listen, we're never going to see those F-35s. Forget
Oh,
it. That's a fucking pipe dream.
exactly. Well, I mean, it's like, okay, suddenly you've got a 19-year-old that is needing to use 8-year-old software or 10-year-old software, which they don't know how to use it.
Yeah,
They haven't got a clue.
we're never going to see those F-35s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to cut into this conversation for just a little bit because we have Kit Dan in the green room waiting for us.
Right on.
Because he's been down to the Hamilton area where the Camp for Kindness event is going on. We have some people that are there trying to convince City Hall in Hamilton to do stuff for homeless people. It seems that there's a parking lot area. It seems that City Council has voted to maintain a space for parking.
That sounds like Edmonton.
Rather than doing something for the homeless. And people have decided to camp out in front of City Hall for a couple of days to try, up until that vote was going to be made, to try to convince them to decide otherwise. And I'm guessing they did not vote that way, and there have been some developments. Kit Dan went down there, and he has a little report for us from what he's seen when he was there.
Let's bring him on in.
Hello, my friend.
Sir. How you doing?
Dan.
How are you all doing, man? Good to see you, Chris.
It's good to see you too, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, give us let us know what it was when you were there, what you saw, and what went down, and how Kit, Angela, and Leanne are doing.
Okay, so just to clarify, when they originally voted on it, I believe it was an 8-8 vote. And what happened was the encampment was supposed to end on February 28th at the meeting, but the meeting was canceled because of a security breach at Hamilton City Hall. So instead of being February 24th to February 28th event for Angela there and everybody else, it's now turned into something else. And they're actually being forced to leave this afternoon.
So the campers are being forced to leave?
Yes. So I actually arrived there about 12 o'clock yesterday afternoon. I brought them some breakfast oats and some condiments for their hot dogs and everything. I took it upon myself to walk into City Hall, walked right into Andrea Horvat's office. Went up to her staff member, introduced myself properly, not yelling or anything, and offered my help. I went back outside, and about 2 minutes later is when the video of the police officers talking to me happened. I think what happened was I went in there, probably pissed somebody off, and they sent the cops out there, and they came at me, and they said, "Hey, are you Dan? Okay, what's the last name you're looking for?" Well, I don't know, blah, blah. So they questioned me like that. Bottom line is, when I was there yesterday, I was there for about 4 hours. There was residents coming up, giving food. I actually went across the street to a residence building to pick up food for everybody. And it was probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 bylaw officers were sent out to give eviction notices, and they informed Angela and everybody else that they were trespassing and that they had 24 hours to leave the spot.
So what happens to these people now?
Well, I think what you're going to see happening in Hamilton today is a little bit of a ruckus on Main Street. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, what happens is they're just going to go in, they're going to clear out all the tents, and there was about, I'd say at the time, 25 to 30 people there. But yeah, they gave them 24-hour notice, so which means this afternoon at about 1 or 2 o'clock, the city and police and everybody else are going to move in on the encampment. And it's really sad. I went down there yesterday. Anybody familiar with Hamilton? I went through Jackson Square. Mm-hmm. I got off at the GO bus station on Hunter Street, and the GO bus station is actually pretty much being used as a shelter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's probably about 15 people in there. Go Transit or Via or whoever it is that runs the station there, they had everybody going through with naloxone and everything. Like it's crazy town there, man. I haven't been there in about actually since the January 31st for Jordan's birthday. I hadn't been there in about, I don't know, 10 years. It's not the same. And I was just very disappointed that she could have took the time to come out, say a word to everybody, or even have Angela in for a meeting. And they didn't do that. They just jumped right to evicting them and kicking them out of there. Like there's I believe it's only 2 shelters in Hamilton. and they claim that there's about 10,000 people homeless there. Pardon my language, but where the fuck are they going to go, man?
This just happened in Edmonton. I don't know if you guys were tracking all the news. The cops shut down like a whole bunch of camps. And it's like, that's great. You know, they're finding all kinds of things that are definitely a risk to public safety, especially them, like propane tanks and shit. Like a bunch of guys got burnt and seriously hurt. But it's, our mayor is a freaking idiot. I don't want to get into that. But anyways, it's like you have to have a plan. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Right.
And see there in Hamilton, it's a wide open space, right? You guys can see the space in the videos that you're sharing there. And so when I was there yesterday, there was one small propane barbecue that they had, one heater thing that everybody could warm up their hands on. And they had a food tent. They had probably about 20 tents. And like I said, all it would have taken was for her. When I went into that office, like, I showed it all, right?
Yeah.
I showed it all to them, and I was respectful, and I wasn't yelling. And I asked him to just simply have a meeting with Angela for 5-10 minutes. And next thing I knew, that's cops were out there, bylaw officers were out there. And it's just like they just want to cast everybody aside without a plan to fucking put them anywhere. And how can you...
It just blows my mind in this country. How can we not solve homelessness? Like... How can we not solve this? It's unbelievable that we can't figure it out.
I'd like to just read a little bit here. It says, this is from Global. The plight of Hamilton's homeless was on display in front of City Hall Monday, and several tents were set up in protest of a failed motion last week to build affordable housing on 2 municipally owned parking lots. So basically there are 2 parking lots, and there was a plan to build some housing on it, and that's for parking for 27 cars. So the choice was use those things to be able to build some housing for the homeless or keep them as parking for 27 cars. And it seems that for some reason council was split on that 8-8. So there was going to be another vote, and hopefully they were trying to move one person to the side, at least one more vote to the side of, building homeless housing for homeless there. This is property advocate Angela Voss, Kit Angela, said she was furious over the decision, as hoping the display will bring to light what those unsheltered across the city are experiencing. Quote, "I'm furious, to be honest, and I'm just absolutely disgusted because this is not our humanity. This is not who we are supposed to be, so I want them to know that we're here and give them the opportunity to join us." Then mentions that Kit Angela called on the Federal Ministry of Defense to open up the John Weir Foote Armories downtown to host a warming center during a stretch of extremely cold weather. And it is something that... the federal government did find some buildings in Ottawa to do that with. I don't know if that happened in other cities, but that was sort of like at the genesis of this protest. And when there was no action on that, and then when they heard about the bylaws, they decided to do the Camp for Kindness. And that came up rather organically, and it came up rather quickly. I think it was announced just 2-3 days before it started, and yet people rallied around to make it happen.
Well, there was an encampment here in Ottawa at the Bayview, right behind the Bayview station, or was it the Pimisi station, which is the LRT station right along the transit line. And there was an encampment there, and the irony being that they cleared them all out, of course, but the irony being LeBreton Flats used to have a campsite right in downtown Ottawa. They closed that about 20 years ago, I think, maybe a little less, but there was a campsite right there, and people would camp, throughout the summer and spring, summer and autumn. I don't remember anybody staying there in the winter, but when they had an encampment built, which is not too far from there, somebody in the neighborhood didn't like looking at the poors in tents, so they moved them all out.
Oh, we do that that happens here during festival season. Suddenly the cops, I had a friend who's a cop who said, quote, I won't name his name, "This is not what I joined the police for."
Yeah.
So during festival season, like in the summer, Edmonton's got a lot of festivals.
Festival city, right?
It is. And they clean out these camps in the River Valley, for no lack of any better term, beautification and optics. I'm going, wow.
Well, that's all it is. If you go behind my building here where I walk my dog, right, it's a park there. And there's 3 encampments there. But because it's Midtown Toronto, it's out of the way of the downtown core, nobody does fuck all to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the sickest part. I watched yesterday, and I'm not just blowing smoke up anybody's ass, but I watched yesterday in that 4 hours, Angela go from being happy that she's helping and getting the word out there to just total utter disgust, like anger, and what she was saying was true. And I said it before, I'll say it again. You got 10,000 or whatever people homeless in Hamilton. You got 2 shelters there, and you're kicking people out of their own tents. Where are they supposed to go?
Yeah.
Where do they go? The average person.
There's no plan. There's no plan. They just send the cops in. They tear these things down.
And I want to make it clear for people.
No plan.
Yeah, and just to make it clear for people, and in case I ever have to go to Hamilton again, I don't want to be harassed by the cops. Those 2 cops that were talking to me were really nice. The problem that I had was they came up to me, and anybody that's been through the system knows the deal, right? They came up to me, they played the whole, yeah, are you Dan? We're looking for a Dan. Okay, what's his last name? And I asked them that like 3 times. And of course they played it and wouldn't tell me, right? And then after that day, I gave them my ID because I got nothing to hide, right? So I gave them my ID. They ran me. I was clear, a couple of parking tickets or whatever, but I was clear, nothing, no warrants, no nothing. After that fact is when the young lady cop asked me, what's your phone number? What's your address? Like, what?
They don't need that information. There's
exactly.
no reason to give it to them.
You don't want to help people, but you're trying to track people that are trying to help those people. Like how?
Right.
Well, you were homeless for how many years, Dan?
I became homeless, or however you want to phrase it, on my 20th birthday in 1997, and I didn't get fully housed until 2016.
Yeah.
So, and when I say that, just to clarify, I wasn't like in the parks on the streets or anything. There's something here in Toronto, and I don't know if it's any other jurisdictions around Ontario or Canada, but there's something here called temporary housing. So I was put in multiple rooms in multiple houses run by the city and their sub-management companies and such. So I wasn't sleeping in a park or anything, but I didn't have my own toilet. I didn't have my own bathroom. I waited over 4,000 days to get housed. Over 12 years.
Jeez.
Over 12 fucking years. And I watched yesterday, I'll make the long story short and then you can ask whatever you want. Yesterday, Angela said, can you stand at this tent? And I said, yeah, sure, why? And she goes, you know what? That woman in there just cashed, because at the end of each month, it's when you get ODSP or OW. That woman just cashed her check. She can't afford the place to stay, but she's got a bunch of money on her, and I don't want her to get robbed.
Right.
How? Like, bang.
Yeah. Yep. That's like, yeah. That's really interesting because I was just talking to my Beaver sweetie. He's on vacation in Cuba, and some person gave one of the people at the resort a rather big tip. And somebody actually came to them at one point later on and says, listen, it's very nice that you did that, but we would ask you not to do that. It says, why? Because we had to send them home with an escort and everything, because you have to understand there's eyes everywhere here. And when that tip happened, everybody saw it. And if she had gone home alone, she would have gotten mugged or assaulted or somehow. So everybody else could get their share of it. So there are eyes everywhere. According to this article, too, it seems to be that it's a bit of a battle between the Stony Creek Business Improvement Association. They're arguing that the lots at 5 and 13 Lake Avenue are the only ones in the area for parking, and they're deemed critical for nearby small businesses and medical clinics. They said it was about protecting jobs, small businesses, and giving parking options for those who attend the nearby medical center and veterans who visit the Royal Canadian Legion. So that's what they're saying, that the parking spaces are needed for that. And then you have another group saying that, well, we need to do it to build housing on those spots. Now, the mayor, Andrea Horvath, apparently is on record of being on favor of developing the lots for housing, but it doesn't seem that she's doing much to actually convince council to actually make that happen. That's what it seems. So,
I last saw her about 2 years ago at Evergreen Brickworks here in Toronto, just off the Don Valley. She was giving a rally. I think it was March of 2022. Then, of course, she lost the election in June. That's when she gave it up to Barrett Stiles. Any conversation or contact I've had with her has been pleasant. And I just this is what's so frustrating to me and angering, because my ship has sailed on that front, but it's when I see other people going through the same shit, and it could be fixed like that. On average, in any city across Canada, on average, it's between $4,000 and $6,000 that the government pays to keep somebody in a shelter. So why the hell wouldn't you give somebody, instead of $1,300, say $2,000? They can go rent their own place, and you still got $4,000 in pocket. It's because it's a business. It's because if you get rid of homelessness, you get rid of nurses, you get rid of cops, you get rid of food delivery services. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm just tired of seeing this shit happen. And the sadness I saw yesterday and what I know is going to happen today is what's really, I had to tell her I couldn't come out there because I don't want to be arrested.
Yeah.
And this is what's going to go on today. You're going to see it at 1 o'clock. I'm going to guarantee it. The street is going to be blocked. There's going to be pure protests going on, and it's going to be pure bullshit, costing the city of Hamilton more money to cover that than it would to fucking actually house these people. So I don't get what the thought process is. With regards to Stony Creek, I can only comment on what I heard yesterday because I don't know about it. But guess whose name came up in the Stony Creek conversation?
Whose?
Some guy that might have tried to screw the Greenbelt out of some land.
Oh, of course, Doug.
Of course.
So
yeah.
I haven't dug into it yet, so I don't want to comment any further on it. But there's talk about those two development sites being for people.
Yeah. Now, Ward 5 Councillor Matt Francis is on the record as saying, to be clear, the use of municipal lands for affordable housing is a key part of our housing sustainability and investment roadmap, and we must, as a council, be doing everything we can to get people housed as quickly as possible. And he's suggesting that the choosing parking over people narrative is totally incorrect. Say is that there's alternative in Stony Creek's Riverdale West neighborhood that has been overlooked. So he said that could go forward and provide almost as many affordable housing units for families in a neighborhood that can support it even better than downtown Stony Creek. But there doesn't seem to be a motion for that. So again, right, candies and nuts, if and buts, and all that good stuff.
I'm personally not too familiar with anybody other than Andrea Horvath there. I couldn't even name one city councillor in Hamilton, to be honest with you. But what I do know is, since my daughter was born there, literally, this is what killed me yesterday too. I have a daughter that's on the other end of Bay Street North there, on the opposite end of City Hall. And she was born in 2012. And I've seen, like I said, it was about 10 years before last month that I went there, but I noticed the decline. And it's the same, pardon my language again, but it's the same fucking thing as Toronto. So if you go to East Toronto, you'll see that all the worst of the worst people are pushed into a couple of Toronto community housing buildings on the east side of Toronto. Get them out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, right? So when I see this, I'm wondering, how far are you going to push them? Where are you going to push them in Hamilton? There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, into Lake Ontario.
Yeah, exactly. And being that Andrea Horvath herself, I didn't talk to her yesterday, but I know that she had some family issues with some relatives and stuff, and you would think that she would understand this point of view. Whether she agrees with Angela or any other advocate in the city shouldn't fucking matter. When it comes to life and death issues such as housing, LTC homes, anything to do with seniors or kids, it should be a no-brainer. You should just do it. Just do it.
It seems that Mayor Horvath says that she's still hopeful. That's in the Hamilton Spectator today. Unfortunately, I can't read the entire article because it's behind paywall, but she's hopeful that building something on those two lots will still go through. I'm getting the sense from the headline that yesterday's vote also ended tied. I was looking for a result on it specifically. I'm still looking for it while we're talking.
You're not going to get a result because it was 8-8 tie.
It was an 8-8 tie.
It was an 8-8 tie.
Tie, and then they were supposed to vote on it again February 28th. And because of the security breach that happened in Hamilton, they put cast the meeting aside, but they haven't set a new date yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing she's seeming to say that she's going to keep on working behind the scenes to try to make that happen. Which means, I guess, that the people doing the encampment decided that they were going to stay, and I'm guessing now that's why this is coming, because had they just had the vote had been successful, the encampment would come undone, and then everybody would be going home, and this wouldn't be an issue.
You know what this is?
Easy. There you go. But you know what? Here's the problem that they don't want to talk about. They can talk about sheltering the homeless. There's all kinds of interim solutions. We have an empty remand center, and I know the stigma behind that because it sounds like a prison. But you can rip the bars off. It's got showers. It's got kitchens. It's got rooms. It's right downtown Edmonton, because the new one's on the north side up here where I live. You could use that when it's minus friggin' 45 here. But here's the thing. Homelessness. What's the root cause of homelessness? In a lot of cases, it's substance abuse issues. It's mental health. So that's great. You're on the street. I shelter you. But what I need to work on is mental health problems, psychological issues, your substance abuse problems, then re-educate you and get you back into the workforce so you can sustain yourself. They don't want to fucking take that shit on. Right?
You're right.
Because I work for
work, you know?
When my last job, when I got out of the Army, I did a lot of jobs. And the last one was I worked for a company called Civio that does workforce accommodations, basically camps for oil and gas and whatever, right? And we just put a 2 36-person dormitories downtown, like kind of a transition center. I don't know, halfway house, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to devalue what it is, but it's to get people off the street, get them in, get them some help, and then, rotate them out. It's much similar to ATCO did it, Homes for Heroes. It's basically for homeless veterans, right? So there's a couple of them, these tiny villages. Calgary's got one, Edmonton's got one. There's a couple, one in Ontario. Great idea.
There's one in New Brunswick too that just opened.
Yeah, but that's great to have those, but you have to solve the root cause problem of homelessness. Why is that guy homeless? Oh, because they have a substance abuse problem, or because they have a mental health issue, or a combination of both, right? It's not just like, well, buddy had a hard run, lost his house. Dave or Dan, you can speak to this better than me. I'm saying these are the problems that needs to be solved past just getting somebody a roof over their head because it's cold outside. So shutting these camps down, first of all, with no solution is problem number one.
Yeah.
There are accommodations that could be solved. That's not a problem. I can tell you right now, there's tons of these camps that I used to build as part of my job, sitting in yards that could easily be integrated. What are you going to do after that? Then you got to bring in mental health professionals to help these people, substance abuse programs, and then re-educate them. What were they good at? Nobody starts off in life to end up homeless. Something happened along their path in life that put them there. How do you get them back on that path? I don't think there's enough effort going into that part. So
there definitely isn't, and I'm sure as a veteran who served in combat theater, or the theater of combat, as they say, I'm sure some of the guys you've served with have mental health issues, severe trauma from moments like that.
There's guys on the streets.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why that lump sum payment was just a disastrous decision.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah. Ben, when Chris was talking, you were pointing at yourself. You had something to say.
I don't remember what it was. I think he was saying about there's different issues with regards to homelessness or whatever. I'm saying, like, I've been through the gauntlet, right? I've been there and back, and when I see things that are so totally able to be solved, and they just keep kicking them aside. For example, if anybody's got any time today, go study any budget in any city, whether it be Toronto or anywhere else. The majority of budgets are to staffing. So when you hear announcements from people like, oh man, I want to call him so many names, but I promised my mom I'd behave. When you see things being said by people like Doug Ford and stuff, oh, we've given $32 million to ODSP. We've given $50 million to help. No, man, they gave it to the staff. They gave it to the staff. It's not going to do fuck all for you, me, Chris, Paul, Douglas, anybody else in this room. It's the simple fact is, like I said earlier, if they fix the problem, if they take care of homelessness and house people and everything else, the nursing jobs go away, the police jobs go away, the staffing jobs go away. That's what it's all about. It's about keeping their quota to keep the budgets going so that they can get more funds the following year to restaff more people. Just as an example, I studied the budget of TPS, Toronto Police Service, back in, I think it was 2013. 71% of the budget went to staffing. The rest, 20% went to like miscellaneous, and the rest went to programs. What? How's that going to fix the problem?
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. It's just going to keep it going and going and going. And what I saw yesterday there was a lot of people that gave a shit about humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But like you guys have said earlier, there was also a lot of people that had, you could tell, I know from experience, addiction problems.
Mm-hmm.
I even saw a fist fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was because people are frustrated. That whole thing, like you said earlier, was supposed to go from February 24th to the 28th. And then once council cut that meeting, that's when all hell broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
And today, it's going to be very sad in about 5-6 hours when you see resources, when you see people's emotions, when you see everything else going to fucking waste. And all you had to do was say, hey, wait a second. We're spending $4,000 to $6,000 to keep these people in shelters or on the streets. Why don't we give them $2,000 and bank the rest and put it towards something else to better the city? But no, they don't think like,
mental health care is the big thing. And
Yeah.
like you say, addiction, substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs. And I know you've seen it because I've seen it. It's you'll see people sitting in a park and they're drinking Listerine, or the other thing was that they had a problem with during the pandemic was the height of the pandemic, people would steal hand sanitizer. They mix it with water and drink it because it's 60% or higher alcohol. Now that will make you violently ill, but if you're somebody who is suffering in severe alcoholism, it'll save your life in that moment. It'll keep you out of the hospital. Is it a solution? Oh God, no. We need to do more work to take care of people better. And like you say, the money is there. The will isn't. It would be so much cheaper. We can save so much money if we actually put people in housing and got them the mental health support and the addiction support that they need. It's cheaper for us to do this. It's been proven time and time again around the world, but the will just isn't there because, I don't know, as Cassie said earlier in the chat, some people, here it is. A lot of conservatives believe and project the idea that homelessness is punishment for people's bad behaviors and thusly deserved. And there are people who think like that.
Yeah.
And not just
go to work.
Yeah. It's
Just
not
get a
just
job.
conservatives that think like that. It's not. Because I've met people all across the political spectrum who felt that way. Just get a job. He doesn't have a place to live. How's he going to get a goddamn job? Let me see. Does he have his social insurance number? Does he have a bank account? It's not that simple.
Well,
it isn't.
That drives me nuts because, let's say, Paul, you go to jail for murder. Mm-hmm. You're in prison. You get an education paid for by the government.
Yeah. 3 hots and a degree. And yeah, I can get a degree.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I go grab a homeless dude off the street, like a homeless veteran, and go down to the U of A and go, I want you to take care of this guy, give him 3 meals a day, put him up in campus,
mm-hmm.
right? University dorms, whatever they call them, and get him a degree. They're going to look at you like you got a fucking toaster for a head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't worry, prisoners, good to go. But our homeless are less valued than criminals.
That's twisted.
Prison.
Right?
I'll tell everybody here today.
Fuck up, man.
Yeah.
Like point blank, my story is real simple, and I'll make it short. At 13 years old, 12 years old, whatever it was, a teacher of mine tried to take me away. And I was hell-bent against it. Mom, what do you mean I can't go? What do you mean I can't go see the horsies? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what started my spiral. And then throughout my life, suffered through some mental health issues and, I would say addictions. I was addicted to alcohol, no hardcore drugs, but, I smoke pot and everything now and what have you. And it's that everybody puts a label on everything and it shouldn't be labeled because we all have a different story, right? I finally got housed in 2016, and I tell you right now, that was the best thing that ever happened to me because that's the base you need to be able to bring in your family, to be able to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, to be able to get some work and have company over, right? And it gives you the confidence. And from that confidence, I flukily met that city councilor on a train, and the rest is history, right? So people got to stop thinking that everybody that's homeless is a crackhead or a fucking alcoholic or what have you. It could be you. It could be you. And it could be your mother. You know what I'm saying, man? It could happen to anybody at any time.
There are millions of us across this country that are 1 or 2 paydays away from being, you miss 2 paydays, you're on the street, pal.
Or as Melissa said when we were on the show, when we were talking about ODSP, everyone is one medical incident away from being disabled.
Yeah.
And that too could land you homeless.
Yeah, one catastrophic accident, all of a sudden you find yourself, you can't work anymore. You're walking to work, car jumps a curb, hits you, takes you out. You find that now you're in a wheelchair and you cannot do the job that you have been doing for years, that you were trained to do, that you're a professional in. Well, now you have to re-educate yourself. Well, how easy is that when you are going to have to spend the next year in recovery from a catastrophic accident that had nothing to do with, it was not your cause, right? So now you're homeless. Now you're into the system. And guess what? That's not helping anyone. So yeah, there are millions of us that are 1 or 2 missed paydays away from being homeless. And every single one of us is one catastrophic accident away from being disabled. One. That's all it takes.
Think about it this way. You got $1 million home. You're living comfortably, right? You got your family. But every single penny that you have in savings in your work rates, what have you, is going into your home. And knock on wood, God forbid, your home blows up. What do you got? What do you got? What are you going to lean back on? You got fuck all, right? So it's got to be, it's what I said to you guys 1 million times and to everybody else. I'll say it again. It's got to be lived experience at the table to deal with these issues. Doug Ford, that piece of beep, doesn't know what it's like to be homeless. But he should, because you know why? And I'll call him out on this now while I have the chance. 1999, I got out after doing a 2-year bit. And him and Rob and Randy gave me a job. They gave me a home to live in, and they gave me a little extra money to get me started to get clothes and everything. And now this piece of crap is acting like this. And I know it's not him. I know how it works. He's got people chirping in his ear. But the fact that you let people die in LTC homes, you're letting people die in our streets. And yet I'm hearing stories of people getting housing after only being here for 2 fucking weeks. But there's people dying on our streets. And I hate to be that what if guy or what about us or what have you, whatever people want to label it. But it's a simple fact. I saw a story last week in the news that somebody got an apartment after 2 weeks. Congratulations. I love that you're housed and you're not sleeping on the street. But what about the fucking guy that's been laying on the street for 10 years now and can't get housing?
Yeah.
That's why these problems keep spiraling. And that's why what we got going on in Hamilton today is happening. Because they didn't take care of the problem when they had the opportunity to. And they've just let it spiral into this and are now kicking people out of a spot when they have nowhere to go to. And it's totally mind-boggling.
Yeah. We got some comments from the kits here when we're talking about encampments being taken apart. We Kit Sean going happened here in Sudbury. Kit Michael going Bell Park here in Kingston. Kit Hugh going happened in Kingston, happens in Peterborough. We have a Kit Saucy saying, instead of fixing the problem, cities are embarrassed and trying to sweep it under the rug. And Kit Ina saying, with homeless encampments, there should be no evictions without solutions. Got Mademoiselle Fox saying, I've gone to the encampment in Kitchener-Waterloo a few times and brought some food. It was very well organized. Kit Sean mentions, we have at least a dozen closed schools here covered in spray paint and rotting, which I'm guessing he's saying that because those could be used if they were refurbished. We have Kit Tim saying there was one here in Cornwall, but they moved them to an abandoned school. Not ideal, but at least something. We have Kit Saucy saying the police also destroy all their things when they come and take apart the encampments, and no, these people have lost everything that they have been trying to save, so they basically lose it again, whatever they've managed to save since then. We have Kit Cassie saying the Manitoba Métis Federation is using funds to build transitional housing for kids aging out of the foster care system. Good things can be done if there is a will. Kit Saucy again saying, this is hitting me harder than usual. The day before, I just found out that a friend of mine who was homeless in Alberta died of a drug overdose. I got out of the abyss. He didn't. My heart hurts. I just want people to actually give a fuck about other humans. I'm coping and looking at how to make things change. This will put more fire in me after grieving it a bit. And then she mentions later, my friend who overdosed lost his mother to cancer at 8, his father to cancer at 16. His stepmother left his father during his illness, quote, because he's dying anyway, and he never recovered from that. So when you're talking about like a series of events that can happen, Kit Aina says, that is a profound way to look at it. Having my own bathroom affords me dignity.
Oh, yeah.
Kit Linda M., does the federal government have to step in and say, here's some money, you're only allowed to use it to house homeless people? Is that the only way to make it happen? Pay people to care? Kit Aina suggests as well, what about places people can gather with areas they can nap safely on the sides and professional trauma counseling done in a casual way in the middle and access to tech for networking? And finally, we have Mademoiselle Fox again. There's a new tiny home, retraining, farming, and entrepreneurship and development for vets in Chalk River. I met the founder recently, helping with their communications, and will report back.
Yeah,
so there are some
try and get him
solutions.
on the show.
Yeah, there are little things happening here and there, but there doesn't seem to be a systematic.
No, it's grassroots. It's all grassroots. It's
Well, that's the thing. If you go to the encampment in Hamilton, like Angela has it all set up. She has harm reduction supplies. She has food. She has extra tents for people and such, right? So it's actually the people in the community doing the job that Miss Horvath and anybody else in government should be doing, right? So I don't understand how somebody is doing the job and you want to kick them out. And to press on the other issue you mentioned, like we had somebody here, I think it was last year or the year before, formerly homeless guy here in Toronto, who was building little tiny shelters for people, and not even like on the street or anything, like out of the way. Nobody sees it, in the bush, in the trees, whatever. And they've shut him down.
Yeah.
But they don't provide a fucking solution. Like
I know, it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating to me too, because on a couple of levels, like, on my personal level, what I've been through in life, well, and I know people think it's nuts, right? But like when I see Doug Ford doing what the fuck he's doing, man, and I know what he did for me in '99, I'm thinking in my head, how can you do that for me and then turn into a dickhead fucking 20 years later?
Yeah. Yeah, that's puzzling, because I've heard those stories from other people when it came to the Forge. They helped a lot of people, but now all of a sudden, screw the poors. We got to keep our rich buddies happy. I want to show you guys a clip from yesterday, which the Ontario PC Party thought was a brag. It isn't. We'll watch it and then talk about it, because this is not something to brag about.
We don't always see eye to eye with the NDP and the Green Party over there, but I was glad, Speaker, to hear over the weekend that the NDP agrees, that the Green Party agrees, that long-term care homes are indeed homes. Well, Speaker, that just leaves one party in this legislature that doesn't seem to get that picture. And I guess it's no surprise, right, Speaker? Because the Liberals, when they were in power for the better part of 2 decades, well, they made a goal. They said they were going to build 35,000 long-term care spaces, an admirable goal. I think that was in 2007. But, Speaker, you know what happened when they exited government in 2018? They had built a net new 611. So it's no wonder, I suppose, the Liberals don't want to consider these homes homes, because they failed miserably to actually build them. This Premier, Speaker, is getting it done with a record investment in capital and the Health Human Resort.
Thank you. Thank you. The supplementary.
So here's why that's not a brag. Please explain to me how long-term care beds is a home. It's not. It's not a home. It's a bed in a hospital-like environment. So they're bragging about, we're housing people. No, you're warehousing people. You're warehousing seniors. You're not doing anything to help the houseless or the homeless, or I don't know what the term is today that won't piss off everybody, but people who are unhoused. You know, they're not putting those folks into long-term care homes, and a long-term care bed is not a home. So that is not the brag he thinks it is. And we also know that, if memory serves, correct me if I'm wrong, the provincial government, the individual who was in charge of that file for long-term care homes, is about to go on trial because they're being sued by a number of families for unneedless and unnecessary deaths that occurred under their watch during the start of the pandemic because they were not taking security or health safety precautions correctly at the beginning. Remember, we sent in Army medics into long-term care homes in Ontario because somebody needed to help. These are people who've been in the battlefield, who've seen some heavy-duty shit, who now have severe PTSD and severe psychological trauma from what they saw in long-term care homes in Ontario.
And Quebec.
And Quebec. This is Canada, and we're doing this to our seniors, the people who built this country. That is so messed up. Again, battle-hardened medics, Army medics, people who are trained to see the shittiest of the shittiest, have trauma from treating seniors in long-term care homes. That is telling.
Well, and sorry, I can't see the chat right now, right? But I know James had a great guest on the other day, Sherry DeNovo, and I last saw her in January 2021 at the Tender Care long-term care home in Scarborough there, and I pretty much told Doug Ford and then Justin Trudeau that I'd be a thorn in their side. The sadness I was seeing going on with families and shit, when it could have been a quick fix like that could have contributed to various things that would have helped them, was sad. And the last thing I want to leave you with, if you notice in that clip that you just played, what's his name, Michael Cho or something?
Stan Cho.
Stan Cho. If you noticed, he was picking on the Liberals, right?
Yeah.
He was picking on the Liberals because all the PCs and everybody else in the world that doesn't know anything about politics is thinking Doug Ford and Bobby Crombie. You got to remind yourself that Merritt Stiles is the official opposition of Ontario. So why the fuck are you projecting to the Liberals like they're going to win something? They don't even have an official party in the legislature, let alone Crombie having a seat. Yeah. So why you would project on them is beyond me. And it just shows me that it's their way of going, okay, it's us or them. And we saw what happened with now Mayor of Vaughan in the last provincial election, Stephen Del Duca or what have you. It's a circle. It's a circle. They keep passing it around. So if you're not good enough to be the leader of this, go be the mayor over here and contribute to our getting. This is what I don't understand either. TTC stops going into Vaughan, right? When Stephen Del Duca is the mayor of Vaughan. But they're TTC stops. And we can't even get 3 stops here in Toronto. What's like, so it's, I'll repeat what I always say. People get the hell out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. I agree totally 100% with Paul and his theory. Vote for the person that's going to do the best job for your area. Otherwise, we're going to be here 20 years from now.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem we have out here. I can't speak for out east, but the lowest voter turnout is for your own mayor.
Which is stupid because that's what affects your life.
That's your largest influence on your life is not your premier.
No.
And it's not the prime minister.
No.
It's your own city. Yeah. And Edmonton systemically, and I think pretty much every city across Canada, the lowest voter turnout is your own city friggin' election for your mayor. And we have the biggest numpty I've ever seen. This guy's far left. I don't care if you're right or left. And he can't solve problems. He's more interested in bike lanes where it's like winter 8 months of the year. Yes, Lachlan did. It's a thing. And they will, like, we just got a foot of snow last week. And they will clear the bike lanes first and build more bike lanes.
Same thing here in Ottawa.
Bullshit. It's unbelievable. But Mr. Left-Wing Social Super Mayor doesn't have a fucking clue how to solve these problems we've been talking about.
Yeah.
They do that here in Ottawa,
They
too.
want to build a gondola across the river. They got this thing called the funicular that doesn't work. Like 80%. There's all these stupid ass things that make zero sense and contribute nothing to the city and solving real city problems, including homelessness, including like all these things. Like, so you're talking about voting? Go vote when it's time to vote in your city for your mayor, because that's the largest impact on your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your mayor and your school board trustees.
There you go. Yep.
Yep. Dan, to answer your question, I was just looking, I think one of the reasons why they're going after the Liberals is that, at least if we're basing it on polls, since November, the polls have turned, showing either the NDP in second place or neck and neck with the Liberals to having dropped to the Liberals. So the last 2 or 3 polls, while it was always like the NDP leading by 1 or the Liberals leading by 1 over the NDP or the NDP leading by more, sometime in November it switched to the Liberals having anywhere from 6 or 7, 4 to all the way to 15-point leads over the NDPs in the polls. So even though they don't have party status yet and Bonnie Crombie doesn't have a seat, it seems that her election has, at least public opinion, brought the Liberals back into second place. So they're trying to punch her before she manages a chance to rise up a bit.
Yeah, they don't have a seat. They don't have official party status, and yet this is what they're doing. Like,
yes, but they're considering that that the public has already spoken and has already decided that the NDP is going to be third next time because Bonnie Crombie is a big enough name. So they're doing some preemptive framing and some defining.
Who's going to take over for lunch meat Singh there when he gets fired?
Oh no!
Honestly, I don't know. And I'm so disappointed.
Unless Rachel Notley decides to go federal.
Isn't Jack Layton rolling in his grave right now? Like, I'm never an NDP guy, but I actually like Jack Layton.
Yeah.
And like this clown is just bending over for Trudeau.
So is
I don't like politics, boys. I really don't. I don't care.
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean, I do care. Don't get me wrong. But it's just like, man, I remember when the NDP federally was its own thing, not just something. Hey, let's get together so we can screw the Conservatives.
That's, it's
if it was that would be one thing. I could respect that in a certain way, but it's let's get together so we can kind of get these things through, and then once we get them through, let's bash the person that helped us get us through so that we can help the Conservatives win so they can take it apart.
Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening.
It's like if he had just, if you're gonna, let's put this, I don't personally believe that a supply and confidence agreement means that you're up somebody's butt. But if you're going to be up somebody's butt, go all the way up the frick up. Commit.
Yeah. You're right.
I've met Jug Conservatives. I've met Jug Meat before. He's a great guy, nice guy to hang out with and shit, but he's sitting duck politically. So then you're left with Trudeau and this piece of crap PP or Daniel Smith or whoever's going to become the premier or prime minister. You just, the main point, get out and fucking vote. Get out and vote. And for example, like everybody complaining about Olivia Chow and how much she's raising the property taxes here in Toronto and shit.
But
she raised it 10.5%, but during the election it was put out that she was going to raise it 20%. Yeah. And people still voted her in.
Yeah.
So why fucking vote her in and then complain? Vote her in and fix the fucking problem.
I agree.
Came in at 8.5, I think, after ultimately when everything was said and done.
And they have
it was 9.5 on a certain portion of the budget, and then they added a 1% for something else or whatever.
Yes.
So it ended up being 10.5. But through the election, if you go back and watch the debates and everything, they're like her counterpart, who's still a city councillor, Brad Bradford. He pointed out that she was going to raise the tax over 20%, and she more or less, but this is what this is. So you voted her in. She raised it half of what she told you she was. How do you expect to pay for anything if nothing's raised? Yeah. Toronto itself is the lowest property tax rate in the whole GTA.
Yeah.
So it's just a vote-saving measure to say, we don't raise property tax, don't raise. How the fuck do you want to pay for everything then?
Well, hang
who's
on,
going to take
Dan.
out the garbage?
Let's be clear, gentlemen. In this country, at any given level, in Canada, we don't vote people in; we vote people out.
Yeah,
And that's
that's the
problem.
problem. Yeah,
Right. So, am I a fan of Justin Trudeau? Absolutely not. Clearly, I'm not.
Mhm.
But do you think this other clown is going to do better? Tell
God,
me
no.
what you're going to do. He doesn't tell you what all these guys do is shit on each other.
Yeah.
They don't tell you what they're going to do.
No.
It's
No,
just like
it's just
TP
slogan
will
after
come out
slogan.
and shit all over Trudeau. That's great.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hang on a second. Before I vote you in, what are you actually going to do? You talk about defense spending and what a gong show that's turned into.
Mm-hmm.
Trudeau's going around the world. We need to do more. Yeah, you just cut $1 billion out. The chief of defense staff, which is the worst job in the Canadian military, the head job is the worst job you could possibly have. Okay, so our current CDS, he's stepping down. I can't wait to hear what he has to say when he gets out, because it's like all he said was, you can't take $1 billion out of defense spending and there's not going to be an impact.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He's a good dude, Wayne here.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. So then Poilievre, however the fuck you pronounce his name, he comes out and says, he just shits all over the Liberals, but he doesn't tell you what he's going to do.
No.
And
No,
all we systemically do at the municipal level, provincial level, federal level is vote people out because we're mad at them. We want a new idiot. That's what we do.
Definition of insanity, right?
Bring on the next dummy, and then all we do is bitch for 4 years about whatever they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, man, we need to be better at this.
Agreed.
You want to tackle problems? Get a politician that actually comes out. You give me one politician. I don't care if they're NDP, Liberal, Conservative, Green Party, Marijuana Party, whatever, that actually his entire platform, his or her entire platform, is about talking about what they're going to do and not just shitting on the person across the table.
I think Wab Kinu's done that in Manitoba.
I'll vote for you. Tell me what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think Wab Kinu's been successful at that.
Is that right?
In Manitoba, yeah.
That's why I don't track politics anymore. It's just we're too polarized. I remember when everybody was center. I consider myself right center.
Yeah.
Am I conservative? Yes. But I think, the Liberals and the NDPs have come up with good ideas that should be integrated. And I remember you could be conservative and get along with somebody who was a liberal, not a problem. Now we've adopted the American model of just extreme right or extreme left. And that's where you live. I'm going, I can't handle that. That's not a space I want to live in, man. It's just not right.
Guys, I hate to cut in, but we have to say goodbye to Dan.
Oh, you got to take off?
Because he's got some place to be.
Yeah, I got to take off, but I just got a message actually from Angela. So anybody that's listening, if you can support her, be down there today at 1 o'clock and support them. I would suggest to people that if you are going to do that, please don't be violent. Please don't do nothing stupid. Get your message across, get your point across. That's why I do what I do and people think I'm fucking nuts. That's why I walked into Andrea Horvat's office yesterday and just presented myself very personably, very professionally, and get your message across like that. Beat them with kindness, because without it, they're not going to listen. They're going to turn their ears off. So I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And Angela said to say thank you to all you guys for the support. Again, I can't see the chat, so I don't know if she's in there or not. But that's what she said. And if you can join her at 1 o'clock this afternoon, please just do so with kindness and a need to educate the public on what's needed, as opposed to just fighting with them.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Take care, brother.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good one, man.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I wanted to ask you, since you had mentioned it before Dan came on, I had written it down to make a note of it. But when you were talking about procurement taking a long time, we had news yesterday with regard to the ArriveCan app that there was an employee at D&D who was running a consulting company and managed to get money for that, and which is causing some people. Yes, which is causing some people to ask specifically, why can't we have a freaking Royal Commission on Procurement, because it seems to be going wrong for absolutely anything. We can't seem to buy anything in this country without there being some type of scandal or major cost overrun. I'm just wondering if, you might have had some thoughts about the discovery of this guy.
I glazed over that, and it's just one of those things you go, yeah, okay, here we go again. Yeah, I don't know. That whole arrive camp thing is just like, well, why do we? It's just one more thing it's going to cost this much. Suddenly, it's like a gazillion dollars.
Actually, it was
It's
really
like
close to
it's
the
like
actual
what
projected
he's
budget.
saying. Was it really?
Yep.
I thought it was like way over.
No.
Now, Skippy read the first line from one thing that was supposed to be in it and thought that was the whole cost.
I just can't
The
trust
CBSA put out the
media anymore.
full estimate. It was only about $6 million over.
Yeah. The projected budget was $54 million, and it came in at 59.5.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been reading the wrong shit then.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's a lot of media companies that don't release all the facts. Here's the thing.
That's why I stopped reading news.
The first line item says $80,000. For version 1, there were 7 versions of it. So 7, 8, right? There's a little bit more money right there. And then you add in the support network, the call center, the security levels, because this ArriveCan app applies to 41 million Canadians.
Yeah.
And it also cross-references your medical vaccination status. So it's all of these.
Did you guys ever use that app?
Oh, yeah.
No, because I haven't left the country yet. So
I did. I did multiple times. You should see how many genders they have listed.
Oh, yeah?
There's like 8. What?
I had no idea.
You guys understand science, right? You're the government. Anyway, I don't want to get into that shit. I'll tell you what I'll tell you what was projected for this gun buyback thing. If you want to go right, left, right wheel now, it's going to be 100 times that.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And Hugh talked to us
on
about
budget with the ArriveCan app. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was really close.
Plus or minus 10%. Yeah.
That's actually really good, man.
That's exactly, as you know, that's really good.
Yeah. If you're plus or minus 10% on planned versus actual, wow, that's impressive. So what's all the drama then?
There's always cost overruns and oversights and things, that's why you project and then actual. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's not too bad. It was really close to the actual projection. Of course,
that's got to be
Poilievre's telling everybody it was 80,000 and it cost us 60 million. It's like, that's one line item of about 18.
So I'm again, so I stopped reading news.
Yeah. No, I understand. Because it pisses you off, right?
Yeah, I just get angry.
I understand.
You don't get real news anymore. You get you got to think about it.
And clips.
And as we all know, all these news companies are owned by or corporate.
Yeah.
And those corporates back left or right. So you don't get real news anymore. You get interpretations in news. Anyway,
here we have
We'll put it up so you can see it, Chris.
Yeah.
Hold on, I can blow it up.
So
it's not the image that gets blown up, but
but
here,
80,000 was the projected for initial version,
and that's where the Conservatives stopped.
Yeah, they stopped.
Well, of course they did. They needed to stand in the house.
There's all these other things. There's all these other things.
I hope this just stays there and they don't find that, oh, well, it was actually 360 million because we forgot to mention this. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so it came up.
That's impressive.
So it basically came up at $6.8 million over.
Yeah. 55 was the actual. 54 was projected. And then there was another 6.8
for government spending. That's crazy
really
good.
Well, actually, no, it came in at 1 million over. Sorry, and then there was an extra 6.8 million something for something that they realized along the way that they needed.
Right.
That
there was no projection for it.
That happens through the evolution of any project.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was actually just 1 million over, and then you add the other 6.8 million for the thing that they realized. Oh shit, we need this.
I think that's the only thing I've ever seen that the government was
really close,
acceptable tolerance of a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the issue seemed to be more with the contracting. Once the CBSA got it into their hands, apparently they weren't doing proper record keeping and all of that kind of stuff. And when the Auditor General came in, says, "I can't tell you how much it actually cost because there were things destroyed and things not properly kept and whatnot." And everybody's turning around and says, "Well, that's Trudeau." Well,
that checks
it's not
out.
necessarily Trudeau. That's the CBSA.
Yeah.
Specifically, and he's the one that called the people in and said, "Let's go take a look at that." But during that process, then we found out that there was when they're talking about C&G Consultants, that's the name of the company. They're saying, well, it was 2 people in their their basement or their garage or something, and they don't actually do any IT work. Well, turns out the reason I was confused yesterday is because the other group was had another name, what
Mhm.
Jennifer O'Connell said, but essentially that was CG Consultants before they became CG Consultants. Apparently,
they
they had a
changed the
name
name.
change somewhere along the way. But
Uh,
essentially, so the Conservatives are saying we can't believe they gave that money to those two people. And then we found out that during the time that Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, they actually gave $541,000 in contracts to these two people.
Actually, I think it was $6 million all told, multiple contracts.
Yes, well, multiple yes, but the contract that she had, that Jennifer O'Connell had, was for
Right.
541,000, but apparently a $6 million in contracts. So they know what they're saying is not true, and they know that they're twisting it, and they're saying it anyway. And then when that happened, then there was another separate thing that was looking into procurement for indigenous corporations, led corporations, because there was a stated goal within the government, within D&D, to give 5% of all contracts to indigenous corporations. And when they were doing a survey of that, they found out that one guy named, can't remember, I think David Yeo. I can't remember
Yeah,
if his first name
Yeo.
is David Yeo.
YEO.
YEO, this, who identifies as Indigenous, applied for one of those contracts while he was still a civilian D&D employee and got $7.9 million in contracts for the Arrive camp.
wow.
This,
Yeah.
and then turns out we found out after
Oh,
that he ran in
that's
the
what
last
you're
election as a
talking about.
PPC candidate.
Yeah.
Of course he did.
So apparently, so while the Conservatives are all going around saying, hey, he did this to help his liberal buddies and all that kind of stuff, it's like, I don't know how many liberals actually try to screw people over by giving money to somebody who runs for the PPC.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't write this shit.
No, you couldn't.
So they're literally wrong on everything.
Yeah.
And ginning up and rage farming off of it. And what happens when they rage farm? Sign here on this dotted line at this email so that you can help support us. And then what do? They have your data, and then they'll send you an email, 3 or 4 a day, asking for funds and donations. It's all a grift.
100%.
All of it.
I actually unsubscribed from the Conservative Party of Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck off, man. Get out of
But
my
was-
state.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, I'm wondering, and I don't know if you would know this with what you were doing, but is it a thing that people who work for national defense actually, while they still work for national defense, are bidding on contracts with corporations that they have on the side?
It's perfectly legal and
I think
allowable.
that's right.
Yeah.
I can't speak for D&D. So the Department of National Defense, the Canadian Armed Forces is a part of D&D.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
then
it's
you
not
got-
all of it.
It's not all of it, right?
That's right.
So I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Okay.
It feels like there'd be a conflict of interest.
Mhm.
You know, like
It
you work.
certainly does. Yeah, because you would if you were working on the file that you're bidding on, that's definitely a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
A conflict of interest.
Yes,
Definitely.
Arrive Can was definitely not one of their files.
Exactly.
Because
That's not
that's
a D&D
CBSA
file.
and not D&D.
That's correct. Yeah.
So
I
in that
don't-
instance, no conflict.
I
Other than,
don't.
you know,
To me, it's like if you work for D&D, you can't be part of it. You can't be bidding on that anything. Like that just doesn't make any sense. Maybe
Agreed.
they can.
It seems so.
There, Hugh's got it correct. That's exactly right.
Yep. He's got correct. D&D is civilian.
Canadian
What's
Forces
the
is military.
Force is military. Yes, gotcha. So they have to follow civil service rules. Yep, indeed. Good. Thank you for that clarification.
But
Could you-
what are those rules? Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, I don't know that because it's just whenever I dealt with D&D people, civilians, I was like, okay. And fucking red tape, man.
Yeah. And did you know
Right.
that's the second largest employer in Ottawa is Department of National Defense?
Second largest.
Yeah,
Really?
the first is the federal government, of which there are 124 or 134,000 employees in Ottawa Gatineau, and then D&D second, with I think around 80,000 employees, and then after that, it's all the IT companies in Ottawa.
80,000?
Yeah, I think it's around
what are they
80,000. I'd
doing?
have to check the numbers again, but it's like quite literally when people go, oh, everybody works for the federal government in Ottawa, and there's 1.6 million people in Ottawa Gatineau. Less than 200,000 work for the federal government.
I'll tell you what, just to circle back on that 8-year procurement cycle, you can get around that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I said, we got the M777 howitzers now.
Yeah.
We made a deal. We said, because the U.S. Marine Corps, so the M777 howitzer, which we all sent to Ukraine, that was a replacement for the M198, which is the U.S. Marine Corps' big gun, aged out. And we needed them for Afghanistan. So we said, look, we'll get you the next run from General Dynamics of LAVs, okay, armored personnel carriers, but we want these guns right away that are produced by British Aerospace, BAE. And we got them. Yeah. So we can get stuff faster. But even like, I remember getting ready to go on pre-deployment training. We needed to go on a course that Canada didn't have at the time. And only 2 countries had it. Oh. And I got put in charge of making this happen. And I had to deal with public works. I'm like, fucking, the war will be over by the time I get this through, man. I'm literally writing business cases and then dealing with some civilian who's saying, well, why do you want to do the one in the UK versus the one in the United States? And they're just doing a cost comparison. And I just said, listen to me. We're doing this. Sign the line. Because it was specialized shit. And it took a little bit of this, I'm not going to lie. But it got pushed through. But I understand how that process works. I'm like, this is not right. You need checks and balances for sure. Otherwise, people are just going to go off the rails and do whatever they want.
Well, I had
but certain things need to move quicker.
Sorry, you were going to say something, Mr. Grizzly?
Yeah, I had a buddy who was working in procurement during Afghanistan. And he said, people were coming to me for, things like, well, we need this. It's going to cost $1 million. He goes, just go get it. He says, during that time, he says, anything under $10 million, we're just get it. You need it, make it happen. He says, because I was dealing with $1 billion contracts daily, several $100 million to $2 or $3 or $4 billion in some cases.
I know.
He goes, if it was under 10 million, just make it happen. Stephen, we need it, make it happen.
Exactly. And what's funny is, and I'm a conservative guy. I was a fan of Harper, but he took a bunch of fucking credit for what Paul Martin did.
Exactly.
90% of that shit that we had, like when we started in Afghanistan, we were not well equipped. I can tell you right now, we were probably one of the most better equipped militaries on the back end. We had tanks over there. The Americans didn't even have tanks over there. We had howitzers over there. They didn't have any of that stuff. We had the only thing we lacked was air. That's fine. And guess who got all that shit pushed through? Paul Martin's government.
Paul Martin. Yeah.
And Harper took credit for it.
Yeah.
It's like, no. This stuff was right. This stuff was being procured by the Paul Martin Liberal government, not fucking Harper. And I'm a conservative saying this, and I know exactly how this went down.
Yeah.
But
we saw that.
That's the funny thing. Like, historically speaking, if we look at budgetary expenditures when it comes to the military, which government was in power at the time, historically speaking, the conservatives like to say, we're the guys who are going to support you. Historically, that has never been the case. It's always been the Liberal government who brought in the Avro Aero, Liberal government, who brought in the F5s, Liberal government, who brought in the CF-18s, the Liberal government.
You're correct.
Every single time.
But it's by the time they're delivered,
the conservatives
are
back in power.
Yeah. And then they take the credit. But the actual decision to spend the money always happens under the Liberals. And the initial ramp up and the initial cost, the initial investments, the 5 or 6 years that money gets spent before something even starts to be produced.
I'm curious to see if the Liberal government, who's Trudeau's talking 2 sides out of his mouth, because like right now, there's a pendulum shift happening in the military. I can tell you right now.
Yeah.
The pendulum went too far left with all this fucking individuality and grow your hair and paint your nails, and
which is really weird because the military was all, you are part of this unit. You adhere to our rules.
I have never seen. I'm not here to shit on the Liberal government all the time, but I've never seen a government, and maybe it's not just Trudeau, but it feels like it is, more directly involved in how the RCMP and the Canadian Armed Forces functions. I've never seen that direct Like all these changes are mind-boggling. It's simple. Stay the fuck out of my face. Tell me what you want us to do and fund us, and we'll go do it.
Yeah.
And, like they're wondering why recruiting numbers are down. Because you're targeting the wrong people. Your recruiters have been directed to target minorities and, people with face paint and fucking earrings and shit. Here's the thing, and I know this is going to rock the boat a little bit. The majority of people that serve in the Canadian Armed Forces are white young men.
It's
The
not
majority.
a deniable stat. It's not deniable. I've noticed that.
And people get all. Hang on a second. This has nothing to do with. But if you look on the side of recruiting, on a bus or recruiting poster, they want to paint this diverse picture.
It's not that diverse. It never has been.
And it's not.
It never has been.
Don't go after people that aren't interested in being in the military. Go after people that are.
I mean, there's been some change over the last 20 years,
100%.
but it's never been that diverse. It's mostly been men and mostly white men. And that's
Correct.
just a simple matter of
I know a lot of
fact.
Of natives. I know a lot of black dudes. I know a lot of Asian guys. Like, we don't give a shit what color you're. When you're in, you're in. We're all equally worthless to start, and we build ourselves up.
Yeah,
it's true. So, like, I said on my own podcast, I said I'm dead against this whole individuality shit they've been pushing, because I wouldn't be in the military for that. I was this skinny. I'm still skinny, little nerdy kid with big glasses, no self-esteem. That was me when I joined, and right down the aisle on the parade square, day one, July 1st, 1988, is the jock, the guy that banged the prom queen, high school quarterback, like that guy, and a sexy looking man. And guess what? Didn't matter. We were all equally worthless until we proved otherwise and worked cohesively as a team. We cut our hair the same way. We dressed the same. And that's how you build a team. Everybody you work together. So this new concept that's not going to work. It's not how it works. It's not how military works. And they came out and said, the government said, well, we need the Canadian Armed Forces to be representation of all of Canada. I'm like, fucking says who? First of all, let me make it clear. Far less than 1% of the population of this country serves in the Canadian Armed Forces at any given time. It's like 0.22 or something.
It's very small.
And you ask us to go do jobs nobody wants to do. Go do shitty things to shitty people in shitty places. And then you're going to come out and say, oh, well, we need to be a cross-representation and be inclusive. And I fucking hate that word. I'm sick of that word. I don't hate it. I'm sick of it. It's like, no, I think you missed the plot here. Go after people who want to be in the military, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of their color, regardless of their religion. Go after people who want to go do this job that less than 1% of Canadians want to do. And then you'll have an effective military and make them all the same. That's what builds a team. That's my 2 cents. Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, that's all right.
I do that on occasion.
It's quite all right.
I had one other question for you since we have you here.
Did I even answer your first one?
Yeah. I mean, as best you could, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much you know about certain things. The military is pretty, like you said, it's a broad operation. And D&D is even broader. But with what's going on in Ukraine, it seems that we made a promise to get a certain number of shells to them, because right now it seems that the problem is that the Russian army is regenerating much quicker than a lot of people thought. And because mainly the United States has been dragging its heels on getting the next section of money to it. And other countries are starting to step up, like Denmark all of a sudden just out of the blue says, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it, and moved ahead on something.
Yeah.
But we made a promise some time ago to being able to deliver a certain number of shells. And we thought that they were going to be manufactured in Canada. And it seems that we have not been able to get that off the ground yet.
Well, we made a few promises. So yes, I can 100% speak to this because I am an artilleryman by trade. And this is this is heavy metal warfare, and nobody uses more artillery than the Russians. And the best way to counter artillery is other artillery. So we gave them M777s, which requires 155 millimeter ammunition, which is NATO standard artillery ammo. Now, I think it's SNC Lavalin that produces ammunition in Canada. I'd have to check that. We cannot produce the amount of ammunition that they're using. We can't sustain that. We also promised them an air defense system that's failed to been delivered as well.
Yeah. It says right here that in the article I'm looking, Canada currently produces each month about 5,000 of the M107 version of the shell known as the training round.
Training round. The hell's that mean?
Well,
it's M1 series ammunition, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll read here what I have in the article.
5,000 rounds in a day.
Yeah. Said Blair meanwhile says he hopes to have more to say in the not too distant future about how we're investing in increased Canadian production of munitions. The Liberal government has for months been studying proposals from two of the country's ammunition makers, General Dynamics Ordnance and Tactical Systems in Valleyfield and IMT Defense in Ingersoll, to ramp up production of the so-called operational M795 variant of the NATO standard 155 millimeter shell.
Okay.
Canada currently produces each month about 5,000 of the M107 version of the shell known as the training round. Defense sources said the federal government's hesitation about boosting munitions manufacturing relates in part to a projected $400 million investment needed to build additional production lines. And it seems that they've been taking their time making that. So now that they've found about 800,000 sort of those NATO standard caliber shells in the Czech Republic. And they want to contribute about $30 million to buy them from the Czech Republic so that we can deliver them. Because we haven't been able to manufacture them here.
No, we like 5,000 rounds a month is not even in the ballpark of what they would need.
No, that you burn through that in a day.
Yeah, it's like, the other problem they're going to have is they're going to burn those barrels out. Those barrels get a life cycle, and that's it. And we have no means to replace those because we gave them all of our guns. They need. I'll tell you what. Before this, they were firing. Okay, so your standard Soviet round is about 152 millimeters, not 155. In all those Eastern Bloc countries, we're shooting 152 ammo. Like you might have to start replacing these 155s with 152 because it's plentiful in that Eastern Bloc. But if Czech Republic has that, they're going to source it somewhere. Canada shouldn't, clearly nobody's briefing the government on. You can't make promises on something. There's no way you're sustaining the amount of ammunition they're firing. So he's coming out saying, well, we promised this. Well, you promised a whole bunch of shit, but now you're talking about supporting a war. Mm-hmm. You'll never, there's no scenario on earth where we will be able to sustain the amount of ammunition that they're going to consume. Not Canada. No. Even the States. You're only going to give up so much of your ammo. Okay, because the Americans aren't going to give them all their ammo. We need ammo, too, to defend our own country. Whatever country it's going to be, right? So we have something called op stock and log stock. Log stock is what replaces operational stock. So the operational stocks have to maintain a certain level of amount. You're not going to give that away to anybody. You might dip into your log stock and then backload that by production. But if you're not going to give it all of them, and I don't know why they would have promised that because they cannot meet that promise. There's no way. We can ramp up that level of production with what we have. You need to go to literally wartime levels of production. And I just can't see Canada doing that. So it's a false promise. So it's my short answer. Shouldn't have promised that because you can't meet it. You can't even deliver the air defense system. So the air defense system that we're supposed to give them, we were supposed to get that. So Canada hasn't had an air defense capability in 20 years.
I did not know that.
We have no air defense. There's no air defense in this country. We sold the ADATs off in 2002 or something. Canada has no air defense.
That's disturbing.
For a long time. And we were supposed to get it with this new, I don't even know what the hell it's called. And that is supposed to go to Ukraine. And we haven't that hasn't been delivered because we're procuring it from the States.
Wow.
Because here's the thing that I found about Denmark. It was on February 23rd. Denmark said Europe needs to rearm more quickly as it became the latest NATO member to sign a 10-year agreement on security cooperation with Ukraine on Friday, the eve of the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. The bilateral agreements already signed by the UK, Germany, and France allow a pledge by the group of since last year to establish bilateral long-term security commitments and arrangements with Ukraine. Denmark, a staunch supporter of Ukraine, is among the biggest contributors of military aid relative to the size of its economy. Its new $1.7 billion crown, or $247.4 million, I'm guessing that will be U.S. military aid package, was unveiled on Thursday. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that Denmark hoped to supply Ukraine with F-16 jets as soon as she visited the country and met President Zelensky. But essentially, what Denmark is doing is basically giving Ukraine all of its artillery.
Yeah, well,
because
okay,
the United States is dragging. So
which
I'm
it shouldn't be.
just giving you the
Western
context
world
of it.
The
And here's
Western
the
world
question that I
needs-
wanted to get
sorry.
to get to you with this is that because there's a lot of people in Canada that are going right now, Canada first, let's stop spending money on Ukraine, let's help Canadians first. And given that you've been in the military, can you explain, geopolitically, it's like, why is it in our interest to be supporting Ukraine? Because the Europeans seem to get it. Because the Europeans seem to get it, understand that you can't defend Europe if you're not defending Ukraine. If you open the door, if you don't do everything you can in Ukraine, then Putin marches in, and Putin's not going to stop there. And the rest of Europe, they're right next to Ukraine, right? We have a whole ocean between us, so it's a little different for us. But it's like there's a reason why it's important to defend the principle of you don't just walk into another country and say, hey, yeah, that's mine now.
That's exactly correct. Because do you know whose borders Russia? Who's Russia's second largest border country is? Finland. And then
China.
Okay, but guess who's right north of us? We are in very close proximity to Russia.
Yeah. Yes.
Russia. And we have no ability. They can fly those. Remember, we used to intercept those Russian bears, those bombers
all the time.
We can't do that anymore. Count on the Americans to do it. We couldn't shoot down that stupid Chinese balloon. We had no ability to do that. It's a big deal. You need to here's the thing that concerns me, and I'm trying to answer the question. The Western world needs to understand it is at war with Russia. It's just through proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay? It's just, dear Canada, hey, we're at war. NATO is at war against Russia through proxy. So either adopt the mindset and say you're at war and go all in and not half-ass it, or step off and let Russia, because if without the West, Ukraine would, I thought they were going to get bulldozed quicker than they did, to be honest with you. They didn't. And what I thought the Russian military was, actually what we all thought it was, is not. However, and now they're going to get support from North Korea. Where do you think they're getting all their shit from? Yeah, no kidding. Right? So we're actually in World War III, but nobody wants to talk about it.
I said that.
Thank you.
2 years ago, I said, look, like it or not, the world is at war in this case.
Exactly.
We are. And everybody on earth is affected by this war because, Ukraine is the breadbasket for a large part of the Middle East and Northern Africa. Lebanon, most of their wheat and grain came from Ukraine.
That's correct.
And remember what happened in Lebanon just a couple of years ago in their port.
Yep.
They've got no place to store this stuff anymore because it's all been blown to smithereens.
Yeah.
And the economy's gone to pot there too.
This is a global war. This is a world war. But like you said, it's by proxy.
It's by proxy.
We just don't have boots on the ground. But their armament, it's all supplied globally to fight the one bad guy who seems to think he can do whatever he wants. And
that's the problem.
He threatened nuclear war just the other day.
Yeah, but that's fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, really? Because he knows how that ends. We're all dead.
Yep.
I'm not a doomsday prepper. I don't have all this shit for nuclear war. You know what I'm going to do? Just go to the bar and wait and die.
I'm the same. I'm right there with you. I don't want to survive a nuclear war.
You don't. It's not like some movie.
Yeah. I don't want any part of that, man. No. I'm going
to
go to the pub and just
start fucking drinking, and that'll be it. Yeah. Boom, done. So that's. I think he's talking shit. Yeah. He is as much of a narcissist that he is. Even he's not that stupid. Nobody's pushing no red button, and I think his own people will turn against him. I think at some point it'll go, enough's enough. We're not pushing. We're not turning 2 keys and hitting red buttons. That's not fucking happening. Yeah, because it's just the end of the world. Bam, it's over. It's done.
That's it. Yeah.
And so it's like what you mentioned when you mentioned also about the breadbasket. It was also affecting, the sort of Sudan, Kenya, and Somalia area because they had huge droughts and then followed by huge floods, and the grain wasn't getting there. The charity with which I was working, they were talking about how much the price of wheat and of corn and whatnot went up in that area, and with inflation, and people were starving. The United Nations food program was putting out warnings saying, we're going to have people just dropping of starvation if we don't get anything there. And now even you add the effects of climate change like this, you got like people not being able to go through the Panama Canal at the moment. So for shipping, it's tougher there. And when you get the Houthis doing whatever they're doing around the Red Sea, so people are not shipping through there. They're going under, going around Africa to try to get goods to us, which is raising the cost of things. So, it is a world war.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Especially if you add Ukraine thing is one thing, but if you're adding the Israel-Palestine thing going on, and everybody's trying to contain that to not get bigger, we might actually have two things on 2 different fronts. But it affects everything. It's affecting food. It's affecting shipments. It's affecting shipping routes. It's affecting, all this stuff gets baked into prices. All this stuff gets,
Yeah, and then you got that. You got Ukraine. You got saber rattling in the Pacific with the Chinese around Taiwan.
Yeah.
And then you got North Korea going, hey, we're going to fuck around too. Oh, man.
Strange times we're living in, man.
Oh, and here's a little tip for everybody. War doesn't solve anything. Trust me, I've been to war.
Nope, it doesn't. Nope, it doesn't. It makes a few old white men rich.
Pretty much.
That's about it, right?
I don't know, man. You look at World War II. That's the last thing you can say was a win, and we handled shit differently back then. We just fucking bombed everybody. Didn't care. Civilian targets, whatever. Hospital bombing. Bomb them to their knees. Whether it was Berlin, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, it didn't matter. Yeah. Hell, nobody talks about when they firebombed Tokyo. Once they freaking realized that half of it was made out of wood. We'll just use incendiary and just level it. And that's you bring a country to its knees, and then we just spend fucking billions of dollars rebuilding the thing.
Yeah,
we did it in Germany, did it in Japan.
Currently watching a series on, I think it's on Apple. It's Masters of the Air. And
I haven't watched it yet.
USB Flying Fortress. Was it the 117 or the B-17 Flying Fortress, and how. This is when they started their bombing missions. They were doing daytime runs during World War II, and I think it was in 1943 when they started doing this. And to finish, you had to fly 25 missions, and then you could go back home. Well, as the war went on, that got up to 50 missions before you could go back home.
That's where 50 mission cap comes from.
50 mission cap, that's right. And one of the things they talk about at the beginning is like, we don't bomb civilians, we don't do this, we don't do that. The bad guys and then eventually they realize the enemy is doing that to us. This is screwed. Bomb the hell out of everybody, which is what happened.
Well, that's how you end war. That's how that's how you end war. Nobody wants to do that anymore. No. You think about these wars we've been going through. Korea was a draw. Mm-hmm. Vietnam, fail. Mm-hmm. Iraq, fail. Afghanistan, fail. Mm-hmm. It's like, why is that?
Maybe we should try something else.
Nobody's won a war since fucking World War II.
You want to end the thing in the war in Ukraine right now? You send in a couple of snipers and a few bombers and level the Kremlin, flatten Moscow, and take out Putin. And that's it. The war is over.
Like that needs to happen. Either internally, they need to figure it out, or we need to figure it out. the CIA, whoever's really good at that shit, Mossad. There's people that are very good at that stuff.
Well, that's just like, why do you suspect? I mean, I know everybody's using the pretext, it's like, well, if we do that, then NATO will actually be at war like this. But given that we actually are already
We
at
are,
war
but
with Russia,
nobody.
and like this,
Yeah.
why are we doing this for the fig leaf of pretense? What's the hesitation? I mean, it seems to me that, when I go into a curling rink to play curling against the other team, the goal is take them out.
Yeah.
2 teams
Yeah.
go in, only 1 team can win. Beat them. Right? This is war. The stakes are way more higher than a curling match.
Well,
Beat them.
Yeah,
Just
2 years
beat
ago,
them.
people said,
Do
"Well,
what
the
you need to do
Ukraine
to
can't
win."
lose, but Putin can't lose." I'm like,
Why
"Well,
can't
why
Putin
not?
lose?
Why can't?"
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
They're like, well,
He needs to
geopolitically,
lose.
blah blah blah. I'm like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, all these Russian moms and everybody, there's hundreds of thousands of dead, and his special operation in Ukraine. It's like, no, dude, you're at war, and we got to make. If it wasn't for him threatening to use that red button, which I don't think he ever will, it's like you wouldn't last fucking 2 days against NATO collectively.
No.
That should be done in a week. Boom. But he's always got that red button, and he's so crazy. People are like, maybe we should ease off. You can't do that. You're either in or you're not. So you either support Ukraine and finish this, or fucking let Russia bulldoze Ukraine. You can't do that because now you're just letting a bully do it. So who's next? He's going to rebuild the Iron Curtain? Is the Czech Republic next? And Slovakia next? Who's next?
But it looks like we're just like give them enough to not get steamrolled, but not enough to actually win. So then we get a 30-year protracted war where you just keep on throwing money down a funnel.
Oh, that's the problem. Like where's
Like,
there's
just
no
finish
end
the
state
damn
here.
thing.
There's no end state. It's just loss of life, fucking raised or scorched earth. That's it.
Because the best thing I can figure out is that they're trying to make this last long enough so that Russian mothers get pissed off enough that they turn over the government and turn on the government and they or somebody from the inside takes Putin out because
No, it's not gonna happen.
Putin's not even bothering to send people over to repatriate the bodies in Ukraine to bring them home to these mothers.
He just kills off anybody who like goes against him. Look at that buddy that just got died. Yeah.
Right. And all these people that fall downstairs and out windows and whatnot. The Russians are particularly clumsy.
Do you know, like, what was that guy's name? I can't pronounce his name. The head of the Wagner group that got shot out of the sky.
Yes.
I'm like, buddy, you deserve to die if you're that dumb to come back to Russia.
Yeah. You
should have been shot down, man.
Like,
what did you think was going to happen? Yeah. What did you think was going to happen?
We were going to meet for coffee. No.
Like when he was hiding out in Belarus, I would have like moved to fucking Spain or something.
Yeah.
Man. You don't go back to Russia after driving a tank column towards Moscow and then halfway go.
But here's the other thing too. It's like, why didn't he just finish it? I mean, you had already gotten all the way to Moscow. Your fate was already sealed.
Yeah.
Like,
you're all
the damn
in,
job.
You're all in. You got to go.
Yeah.
I feel like you roll the
got
boat.
it's like
there.
it's sort of like, it's like I'm going to take this. I have a bus to take because I got my pants on, I got my shoes on. Like us, I've got 1 foot out the door and the key in the lock to lock the door. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll do something else instead. It's like, oh darn, I missed the bus.
That's the thing. People are scared to go against Putin. He's got a fucking death grip. The guy's former KGB, man. Just badass.
What we need to do is send in a crew of our best who are really good at being stealth, who are really good at sneaking in and blending in with the population and just finish the goddamn job.
Yep.
And you know who those guys are, Chris.
Oh yeah. There's lots of people from lots of countries
good.
Take care of that business. And I just don't understand why it hasn't happened. Like I honestly boggles my mind that he's still alive. Agreed. I can't believe Putin's not dead. Like, how the fuck? Because you're right. The minute that guy's gone, the next guy is going to go, okay, yeah, well, you know what? We're going to make some changes around here.
Yeah.
Because their economy's fucked, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've frozen all their assets. Nobody can trade with Russia right now.
So, like, some dude will eventually take over for him. He's going to die eventually. A natural causes or through a fucking 338 Lapua round through the head. And then somebody's going to step in and go, okay, we got to make some changes here, man, because the whole world fucking hates us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It boggles my mind. The guy's alive.
And it's all the innocents that get caught in the crossfire on this. The people who want nothing to do, and most Russians don't want a damn thing to do with any of this because they know they're ruled by
they're
a
just scared to speak out.
lunatic. Yes. Well,
It's fear.
we showed a video from about a week ago with a lady in her 80s who's like, I don't give a shit. What are you going to do? Kill me? I don't care
Yeah,
anymore.
she's 80. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're starting to like figure out the internet. They're getting outside of their state-controlled media, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like state-controlled version of Twitter or whatever. Come on.
490,000 Russian
There you
troops have
go.
been killed. This
Thank
war's
you,
been going
James.
on for 2 years.
I know.
Good
It's insane.
Lord. I don't think the Americans lost that many in World War II. And they
You know,
were
when they-
fighting the Pacific and in Europe.
When they rolled in to like from week 1, okay, the Russians had like dress uniforms with them because they thought
They
that
were gonna
the
be
people of Ukraine were going to like, you liberated us, and they're going to have this big fucking parade. Like, man, you got to be kidding me.
You invade, you're not a liberator. You're an invader, period.
Half those dudes didn't know they were even in Ukraine.
That's
I thought
true,
they were doing
too.
some exercise.
Yeah. Well, how many
suddenly-
videos did you see of like guys who are like 18, 19 years old?
All
who-
tons.
They were pulled aside, and the Ukrainians were actually giving them food and water, and here's a phone, call your mother. And they were weeping because they didn't know what they'd gotten themselves into.
That dude who flew a high-end gunship, MI8 gunship, they just whacked him in Spain, I think.
Oh, yeah.
A
Wow.
week ago.
Yeah.
The guy that defected. He flew in with his crew. They didn't even know, like, this guy defected. Lands in the Ukraine, gets out. All the other guys in his helicopter run away, and the Russians shot them. And this guy defects. He's hiding out somewhere, and they got him, man. The Russians got him. They killed him.
Wow.
To answer your question, Mr. Grizzly, 416,800 military deaths in World War II for the United States versus 490,000 here.
In 2 years.
And that's Russia's reporting of the number, so I'm sure the number is probably higher than what Russia's reporting.
Yeah.
Is that a Russian number? That 490?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's got to be more than that then.
It's got to be way more than
Yeah,
that.
it's got to be way more than that. That's
So you
insane.
think, and again, the U.S., which is a much bigger nation than we were, especially in World War II, what were we, like 12 million at the time, if that?
Probably, yeah.
They had much higher losses because they had a much larger population base, but they were also fighting in the South Pacific as well. So they had, they were on 2 fronts. So, a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit different. Just mind-blowing to think how much loss of life has taken place all because of one greedy despot just wants to take over what he feels was rightfully his. Ironically, there were people living in Kyiv 1,000 years before Moscow was ever founded. So how is Ukraine rightfully Russian? It's not. Never has
I
been.
don't know. There might be, and I can't speak to it, but it's like, is there portions of Ukraine that are on that eastern border that are more Russian than they would be? I don't
Who
know.
knows? Yeah.
I hear that. It's like, I don't know. Why don't you just fucking ask the people that live in that area?
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to be part of Russia? Yeah, we all do. We vote 80% yes. Okay, cool. We'll redraw the map. Boom. You just would have saved like 1 million fucking people from dying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Crazy idea. But again, I don't know. I hear that, these guys in the Crimea or whatever, like, what is it? Kharkiv? I can't remember. They're mostly Russian or pro-Russian. I'm like, well, are they? I don't know. Fuck, I haven't been there.
But that's another like historical counterfactual because we'll never know, right? If we had never become part of the USSR, how many Russians would be living in actual Ukraine?
That's a great question.
We don't know. So
don't know.
It's like everything depends on the thing before, right? So
Yeah.
you turn around and you said, well, it's Russian people are living there now, and it's a language thing. They don't want them to speak Russian, so we have to go into another country. It's like, I don't know, like. It just sounds like a weird principle to me because, we have Canadians that live in other countries. We don't turn around going, oh, well, gee, you're doing that to Canadians that live in other countries. We're going to invade you.
It's not like we just
moved
said,
to another country.
right? It's not like we just, it's like saying, Canada, I think we should just fucking take Alaska. It's right there. Just march in.
Yeah. That's like,
I don't know. You can't either way. At the end of the day, the Western world, to sum this up, because we can talk about this for 16 hours, the Western world, NATO, call it what you want, has to accept that it's at war via proxy and fucking act like it. That's it. Or get right out of it. No halfway. That's what I think. There you go. There's my 2 cents. What time is it?
It
It is about
9:30 our time.
7:25 your time.
So 7:30 your time, basically.
I would have been up for an hour by now.
Well, thanks for getting up early to hang out with us on a Friday morning.
Well, I missed the last two. I'm sorry about that. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind it. It's engaging conversation.
Well, Fridays, because I work from home on Fridays, we can go on for a couple of hours, right? And usually on Mondays.
Every day?
Every day at 7 a.m. we go live, usually for about an hour. Every day, Monday to Friday.
Wow, man.
5 days a week. We don't do this long every day. Mondays and Fridays we have longer shows, and then Tuesday to Thursday we usually
I'll
have
jump
more
in
of a
any
quickie.
Friday if you want.
Oh, happy to. I'll just drop a link in your DM, and if you can join, great. And if not, no worries. Ouch.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys. It's been a lot of slice. It's been a slice, but I got to punch out of here.
All right,
All
brother.
right. It's always nice to chat with you.
All right. Cheers, gents.
See you later.
Bye, friend.
Until next time.
Absolutely. So there you go. Definitely not. Took a different turn than I thought the show was going to take this morning.
Yeah, but you know what?
When
Like
we
you said,
started.
engaging, interesting conversation, and we're talking about things that do affect us because that war does affect us. Like you said, it is a global war. It's a world war. We're just fighting it by proxy.
Yep.
And I mean, I think I said that about a year or maybe 2 years ago when it all began. I said that on this show. We're in it. We just don't have boots on the ground. We're supplying them with armament. We're supplying them with artillery. We're supplying them with the things that they need to fight. We just haven't sent people over yet.
Pretty much. Yeah, Kitlinda, that really evolved from Brian Mulroney. It did. And thank you for mentioning it because that allows me to segue back.
Okay.
Because when we were talking about Mulroney, we were talking about, he had done some big things, and we were just about to get to the part where, things were a little more controversial with him. That's why Airbus sort of came up, Army Kris. But yeah, during that he was Prime Minister, I have to look for the article again because it seems that while I was looking on stuff about Denmark, I had to close some windows.
He had a lot open, yeah, no doubt.
I had a lot of them open here. But with Airbus, what happened is that he was found to have, I think it was $5 million. Yeah. Under Kris, Mulroney was accused by the government of accepting $5 million in kickbacks on the sale of Airbus jets to Air Canada from German-Canadian arms dealer Karl-Heinz Schreiber. After much attention around the corruption allegations in 1997, the RCMP cleared him of any involvement and the Kris regime apologized. In a remarkable legal saga, Mulroney successfully sued the government for defamation and received $2 million more. But a few years later, as Schreiber faced extradition to Germany for tax evasion, he revealed a bombshell that Mulroney accepted a $300,000 secret cash payment from him shortly after he left office. Then Prime Minister Stephen Harper was forced to call a public inquiry led by Justice Jeffrey Oliphant, a scarring event for Mulroney and his family, he told the inquiry in 2009. Ultimately, in 2010, the inquiry found that the financial and business dealings between the two men were inappropriate, tarnishing his legacy. And if you remember correctly, that was an inquiry whose terms were defined by former Governor General David Johnston.
That's correct.
On whom the Conservatives then turned when he was going to define the terms of the inquiry into foreign interference. And it was also at a time where David Johnston was criticized for having made the terms of reference for this inquiry, the Oliphant inquiry, so narrow that there was no way that there would be any meaningful consequence with teeth for Mulroney. So that's one of the reasons why the Conservatives, having turned on David Johnston when it came to defining the terms for the public inquiry on foreign interference, raised a lot of eyebrows among a lot of Canadians, because everybody viewed David Johnston as being the Conservatives' guy. He was also brought in to be Governor General when Prime Minister Stephen Harper had a minority and felt that it was a good chance that his government would fall. And maybe he was hoping to have a Governor General that would say, no, you can't have an election now. So everybody thought that David Johnston was clearly in the side of Conservatives if you didn't know him beforehand in his reputation, because, he was working with universities and that type of stuff, and he's more of an academic and he's a very rigorous man. But if you were just looking at the political side, everybody would have suspected, well, gee, you were named Governor General and then you were called upon again for the Conservatives to help with the Oliphant inquiry's terms of reference. So here you're going to be called upon again. And I'm sure that's what probably Trudeau was thinking. Well, the Conservatives trusted him twice, so I found me someone who's untarnishable. And nope. Because a Conservative will turn on anyone.
Well, they've shown time and time again that you are merely a cudgel. You are a tool to them, and when they're done with you, they will throw you away. They keep doing it. Again, let's also reiterate the fact that these people are not conservatives. They're not.
No.
They're reformers. As Cassie has said, as Charles Adler said, I didn't leave the Conservative Party. The party left me.
Yes.
This is we need to make sure that that's important, because I still have friends who say I'm conservative. I go, but you hate this guy. Oh yeah, I can't vote for him. And I go, well, is he actually a conservative? No, he's a reformer. Good. Let's call them what they are. They're Reform Party. They're evangelical motivated Christian right-wing reformers. This is what they are. Now, how Christian is Pierre Poilievre? I don't know. I think he just plays that up for his audience. But they are not conservatives. They are not progressive. They are regressive reformers who want women to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, making you a dinner when you get home from work.
Yeah, indeed. And a little bit more about Brian Mulroney. In 2010, he was diagnosed with a rare type, or what they call a rare blend of diabetes, about which he was vocal. He was diagnosed while undergoing blood tests for an unrelated illness, and the doctors believed the illness, which was a rare blend of type 1 and type 2 diabetes, was caused by a combination of factors. An infection in 2004 caused pancreatitis and weakened the insulin-producing organ, consistent with type 1 diabetes. However, the onset of the disease later in life points to type 2 diabetes, which is linked to diet and lifestyle. And then later on in 2023, he spoke publicly about his battle with prostate cancer. So
he's had a lot of issues recently, health-wise, and
yes,
it's kind of surprising he's survived as long as he has, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not being dismissive. I'm being honest when I say that. He survived longer than probably he thought he would have.
Yeah, indeed. So yes, definitely, if you were going to say if he's one of the great prime ministers, great is sometimes an interesting word to use in these cases, because you don't know if you mean great as in, thumbs up great, or great as in, grand, and he did big things. But he was very consequential. There's no doubt about that. He's also the greenest. One of the greenest prime ministers that we had as well. So very consequential, and definitely left his mark on Canada. Great as in as in a good or bad sense. That might be up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
He did try big things. He failed at a lot of them. Some of them he succeeded. Free trade and GST were successes. Bringing Quebec back fully into the Constitution were some failures. In terms of how you do politics, two majority governments. The second one larger than the first one, the largest majority government in Canadian history, which is a huge accomplishment, but also the largest political loss in Canadian history. Even though
Yes,
Kim
the party was
Campbell
decimated.
even though Kim Campbell technically was the candidate, I mean, she came in like less than a year, I think, before
Yeah.
the
She
election date.
knew she didn't have a hope in hell. And
Yeah.
again, as
But
Chris
it
said
went down.
earlier, and we've said it time and time again on this show, we don't vote in a new government, we vote one out.
Yeah. But his party then went down to 2 seats and then created the split that allowed for the Reform Party and the Bloc Québécois to emerge. And though the Bloc Québécois back in that 83 election, not 83, 93 election,
Mhm.
had put a whole bunch of T-shirts going, "J'ai voté dans la première et la dernière élection." For the Bloc. I voted in the first and the last election in which the Bloc Québécois. Well, that T-shirt didn't age well, did it?
No.
Because they're still around. They were only supposed to be around for that one election.
Can you address
Yes.
this? Because I don't know if this is the case or not. Wasn't he the first Conservative to get elected twice in a row? I honestly don't know, because wasn't Diefenbaker elected twice?
Yeah, I would think that. Yeah, he might have been the one with 2 majorities
Right,
in a row,
right.
but not
That
the
would
first.
probably be.
But not the first time.
I don't think so.
Yeah, in a row. I'll go take a look on Wikipedia just to be sure on that. But I do believe that were stretches. Oh yeah, I mean like John A. Macdonald.
Yeah.
Right up there, like this, and then Wilfrid Laurier. No,
Laurier,
Wilfrid Laurier was Liberal.
he
Sorry.
was Liberal.
Yeah. Robert Borden got elected twice in a row. As well, John Diefenbaker got elected 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
And then Brian Mulroney. So yeah, but 2 majority governments, however.
He is the first to do that.
Yes. He might have been the only.
Yeah, he would have been.
Did
Harper
Trudeau
get it?
father get 2? No, Harper only got 1 majority. I
Right.
don't know if Trudeau father got 2 majorities.
Well, Pearson was a minority government.
No, he didn't.
And look at what Pearson's government brought us.
Yeah.
EI, minimum wage, which at the time, by the way, was a livable wage, because the minimum wage design was to be the minimum amount you need to live on, not the minimum you can pay somebody. And we need to get back to that, because right now it's not a livable wage. We got to get it back to that. What was it? Something I posted the other day on the Facebook. There was somebody who posted something from a couple of years ago, and it said 1990 average income, and I think this was in the U.S., but the numbers still are still the same. Average income in 1990 was $30,000 a year. Average rent was $500. In 2022, average income is $50,000. Average rent is $2,000. So the rent has quadrupled in that time frame, and pay hasn't even doubled.
Yes, that I believe. Well, not the pay section, but that was Bill Blakey.
Was it?
Actually, it was a clip. Yeah, it was. I remember seeing that. It was a clip from March 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But yes, he did make it very clear that, because one of these things that we say on the show is that one of the things that that conservatives do when we talk about preemptive framing is they start the dial of history at a certain spot that is the most advantageous for them. And so when Pierre Poilievre is speaking about housing costs and rents having doubled, he's comparing it to the time when when he says he was the housing minister.
Yeah.
Yes, but the time that they were in government. But he doesn't start time earlier than that, because he just shows the graph of
He's being
him.
duplicitous, as he always is.
Well, yes, of their time and the other time. And I'm looking all over for the clip now and I can't find it. Darn. But yes, Daniel Blakey was up in the House, and he was making the case that if you go back in time and you look at the data during the Harper years, that housing doubled, and doubled more than once during the Harper term.
But incomes
There
did
it
not
is. I
double.
finally found it.
Incomes did
For
not double.
March. Yeah, I'll send you. I'll give you the clip here.
Okay.
It's from March 2023. And a tweet from Danielle Blakey that he put out saying, "We can't fix the housing crisis without understanding how it was created. Pierre Poilievre is quick to point out the problem, but his solutions are to do more of what we've been doing for the last 30 years that caused the problem in the first place." Now, many episodes ago, I had done a deep dive into housing, how we got there, based on some information from the Wellesley Institute, and we had indicated, it started back in the days of Mulroney when he was cutting certain stuff, and then the Liberals came in under Kris and Martin and talked a good game, but really didn't follow up with the cash infusions that were required to do so. And then Harper came in and he gutted almost every program that was left that had anything to do with creating affordable housing in any way, shape, or form. He did take about $7 or close to $8 billion and did something for housing with it, but it was supports for middle and higher income people in order to be able to get housing, but nothing for lower income. I think it was like when they divided it, it was like of that 8 million, of that 8 billion, 6 billion went to middle and high income earners, and only about 2 billion went to lower income. But here, Danielle Blakey makes some point and has had some data that we didn't have at that time.
He likes to talk about housing, rightly so. Canadians are rightly angry about what's happening in the housing market. He likes to pretend that that's a product of the last 8 years. In 2004, a house that sold for $30,000 in Winnipeg would sell for $60,000 in 2007, and then well over $120,000 in 2012, Madam Speaker. Housing prices have been doubling in Canada for a long time. They doubled every few years under the last Harper Conservative government. So don't tell me that somehow this is a product just of the last little while. It is a problem, and it's a growing problem, but it's been growing for a long time. So how do you solve the problem around housing? Browbeating municipalities into approving building permits for houses that will be built that Canadians can't afford is not a solution. And developers have been building a lot of houses over the last number of years. You know who hasn't been building houses? Governments. Governments have not been building housing. Before 1995, the CMHC, in partnership with provincial governments, would build 15,000 to 20,000 units of affordable and social housing every year. And they stopped when their funding was cut in 1995 by the then Liberal government. Now, if you take the last 30 years and you multiply the 15,000 to 20,000 units per year that would have been built, you land right around 500,000 units. Well, you know what the deficit for affordable housing in Canada today is? It's about 500,000 units. How did we end up with this deficit of affordable housing? It's not rocket science. It's because governments, like with the same philosophy as the leader of the official opposition, cut and cut and cut the housing budget right out of the federal government's budget, Madam Speaker. And that's why we have such a dearth of affordable housing today. And that corresponds with the financialization of housing that we've seen not over the last 2 years or the last 8 years, but over the last 30 years. That's when it started taking off, because you no longer had more affordable housing being built at the bottom end of the price spectrum, which meant all those folks that otherwise would have moved into affordable or social units had to pinch their pennies and make tough decisions about what they could afford and what they couldn't, so that they could start to compete in the housing market. And that's how we got to where we are. So no thank you to the leader of the official opposition, who runs around saying he's really angry about housing, but doesn't even understand where the problem came from, doesn't understand that policies like the ones he is preaching have caused the housing crisis that we're facing today.
That, my friends, is what we call a mic drop.
Yeah. So again, going by his data, housing prices in Winnipeg doubled between 2004 and 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Harper came in, I think, in 2006.
I thought it was 5, but you could be right.
October 2006, I think. So came in near the end of that. Then between 2007 and 2012, they doubled again.
Yeah.
And Harper was still in power until 2015.
Yeah.
So 3 years after that. So housing way more than doubled over the 10 years that Harper was in power. The time during which Skippy claims he was the housing minister, which he was only for 1 year, and he wasn't actually housing minister because there wasn't a housing ministry specifically.
Right.
It was like economic development and something ministry, which a little bit of housing was a part, but there was no housing program to speak of to manage in the first place because Harper had cut everything that was left. So, but he wants you to believe that after 8 years of Trudeau, housing having doubled one time over is worse performance than housing having doubled way more than one time over, maybe close to 2 times over during the 10 years that the Conservatives were in government. That's what happens when you start the needle of time of history only at the point where Harper took over.
Yeah.
And not a little bit before that.
He's being duplicitous again because that's all he knows how to do.
Yep.
Look at how bad it is under Trudeau. What about when it was under your watch? No. We don't need to look at that. Look over here. Look over here. It's all distraction.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I wanted to mention yesterday is a Danielle Smith thing.
Oh, what did she do now? Did I miss something?
Oh, well, Danielle Smith keeps on trying to convince us somehow that she has some indigenous.
Oh, that, yeah. You know what
background.
That is?
Easy.
Yes. So I'm going to put this up for you, Mr. Chrisley. And this is from Nate.
I watched it when he released it, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Okay.
Really?
This okay.
Audacity.
I know this is going to come across as really weird, given that we're talking about this whole transgenderism thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think somebody should lift up Danielle's skirt to see if she doesn't have a pair of balls under there. Because this took balls.
Yeah. So I'll put
Nate goes,
up here.
Did not have Danielle Smith doubling down on her alleged indigenous ancestry in front of Treaty 6 chiefs and nation, but here we are.
Yeah. Watch this. This is wow.
You've previously claimed yourself to be an Indigenous person. APTN did an investigation and found that probably isn't true. Can you clarify and clarify that for us today, please?
Well, I have 2 ancestors that my mother has wanted to make sure that I knew about because in the past people kept Indigenous ancestry a secret. So obviously in this day and age, if you don't have all the paperwork, then no one will believe you. So all I know is that my parents and my mother felt very proud of the ancestors that we have, and she made sure that I knew about it.
When we asked you at the time, you said you didn't know for certain. So I'm asking you why you would make those claims if you don't know for certain.
Well, as I said, that in the past, families used to hide Indigenous heritage because of embarrassment. And my mom wanted me to make sure that we knew what our ancestry was. And so that is why I have always been very pleased that my mother shared that with me, and I'm very proud of my heritage.
So she noticed that she just did a circular thing, right? She just gave the same answer a second time with a few different words with, some clauses inverted. Which means she's got one stock answer, that's all she has, and she has nothing else. Now, what she's talking about is something that's true. Because my mother told me about some of our Indigenous ancestry, and so did my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I know I have Indigenous blood in my DNA, but I also recognize that I wasn't raised one day in the culture, and therefore I have no claims.
Right.
Now.
And she clearly wasn't raised in the culture, so why is she claiming it? Oh, because she's a duplicitous. Take a deep breath, Paul. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and count to 10.
Now, according to Wikipedia, Smith has made claims about her ancestry that have been debunked by genealogists and Canadian immigration records. Her paternal great-grandfather was Philippus Kolodnicki, whose name was anglicized to Philip Smith. I'm not sure how you get Smith from Kolodnicki, but...
Well, no, what they do is, it's because what happened was oftentimes the immigration official at the time could not pronounce the name, so they just assigned them one.
Yes.
That happened a lot.
Upon arriving in Canada, In October 2022, she claimed Kolodniki left Ukraine after the First World War, which ended in 1918, to escape communism.
Not true.
She said her political beliefs were, quote, largely born out of a complete distrust of the socialism from which my great-grandfather fled. In a 2012 profile in the Globe and Mail, Smith claimed Kolodniki was a Ukrainian immigrant who arrived in Canada in 1915. Immigration records reviewed by the Toronto Star showed Kolodniki arrived in Canada in 1913, before either the First World War or the 1917 October Revolution. Kolodniki also listed his nation of origin as Austria and his race as Ruthenian, a term that at the time referred to the ancestors of modern Ukrainians, Belarusians, and Rusyns. Beginning in 2012, Smith publicly claimed she had Cherokee roots through her great-great-grandmother Mary Frances Crow. Smith also claimed Crow was a victim of the Trail of Tears and forcibly relocated to Kansas in the 1830s. An investigation from APTN National News looked over U.S. Census records and found Crow was born in 1870 in Georgia, about 20 years after the U.S. government forced the Cherokee out of their homelands. Oops.
Yeah.
Kathy Griffin, a Cherokee genealogist in Texas who worked with APTN, could not find proof that any of Smith's ancestors were members of the historical Cherokee tribes, including the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians and the United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians of Oklahoma, or the Cherokee Nation. Smith's ancestors also did not appear on the Dawes Roll, a U.S. registry cataloging members of Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole nations. Following APTN's story, Smith's press secretary said Smith had not done a deep dive into her ancestry, quote, and, quote, heard about her heritage from her loved ones, which is now morphed into the version of the answer that you heard in that press conference. There's only one little additional problem with that, and it would be this here, Mr. Grizzly. In an article that she wrote some time ago called A Good Time to Be Métis, she wrote, quote, my great-grandmother was a Métis from America's Midwest, making me just 1/16th Aboriginal. I've never gone hunting in my life, but I could probably get recognized as Métis and start hunting caribou without a license. So, prompting me to wonder, Nate to wonder, Métis, Cherokee, what's the difference anyways, right? It's not like her mother felt that it was important that Smith had a clear understanding of her alleged ancestry, right? She never claimed that, like, literally today, right?
Mhm.
And prompted me to say, there are over 630 First Nations communities in Canada, which represent more than 50 nations and 50 Indigenous languages. It would be nice if Miss Kolodniki picked just one about which to lie.
Yeah. Wow. Well, from Cassie, according to the Manitoba Métis Federation, unless you trace your roots back to the Red River settlement, you aren't Métis, Danielle.
Yep. Kit PNC bio. Jesus, she's just a monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, and she did what she did in front of Treaty 6 chiefs. What?
Yep.
Like, holy Hannah. That takes a gigantic pair. I mean, whoa.
I mean, holy crap on a cracker, man.
It's either that or she has come to believe her lies to the point where she's convinced it's the truth. One or the other. One or the other. She's convinced that her lie is the truth. I don't know what else to say, man. It just blows my mind.
Now, here's a wonderful moment. I swear I don't plan these this way. It just kind of happens. So while Daniel Smith was doing that, there was a member of the Alberta legislature who actually is Indigenous, who stood up to make a comment, not regarding that, but with regard to the trans policy. And this is Brooks Arcand Paul, who is speaking, who is the NDP MLA for Edmonton West Hendy and the opposition critic for Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. Mr. Grizzly, if you would.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak today wearing a beautiful ribbon skirt that was gifted to me to represent my communities. I'm wearing it today to take up space as a Tussawinu a two-spirit person, an individual that possesses both the masculine and feminine energies. A people that were revered on these lands since time immemorial before the arrival of settlers with the ideology that our people were sinful. I do so in this House as a mark of defiance across from this government, which has threatened the existence of my relatives. I'm wearing this to remind them that as long as my colleagues and I are sitting here, that we will always stand up and defend human rights in this province. I'm wearing this ribbon skirt to remind this government that we are not going anywhere, that we belong in this province, and that we will not let them take away the human rights of our trans, gender diverse, and two-spirit family members. But this is not about me. This is about the trans youth that this government has targeted. Over the last couple of weeks, I've heard from countless community members, trans folks, organizations, doctors, parents, athletes, coaches, professors, teachers, and experts in many other fields. They cannot believe their government has chosen to target vulnerable kids while there are so many areas that this government is failing in. Instead, they are seeing their government taking away freedoms of Albertans. The Premier is bullying queer youth for her own personal gain, and in so doing is emboldening hate between Albertans. In the United States, Next Benedict was murdered by bullies at their school in a state that had equivalent legislative attacks on the queer community as the Premier is attempting to do in Alberta. A trans person took their own life here because of this inflated political rhetoric in our province. And I worry, just like the parents of trans youth in this province, that we will have more deaths because of this government's harmful rhetoric. I should not have to rise in this House to remind this government that my people deserve to live and deserve human rights. To the trans, gender, diverse youth and two-spirit youth, we see you, we love you, you matter. We will keep working to build an Alberta that is safe for you to live in.
And that, my kits and cubs, is how you do it. Now, what surprised me most about that is not that somebody stood up and did that, but was all the applause at the end, because I'm sure there weren't only NDP members in that legislature when he said that. And of course, the camera doesn't pan to show everyone. But I have a feeling that there were some UCP members in that legislature sitting at the time who applauded for that while they're doing what they're doing. I'm wearing my unimpressed face.
Yeah.
Here. But sir, yeah, exactly, Kit Linda. I was waiting for heckling to come from the other side. It did not happen.
It didn't. That's kind of impressive. Yay for humanity.
Well, I mean, humanity, but oh yes, you wore the ribbon skirt. You're speaking. Yes, I'm applauding for you. But meanwhile, I'm sticking it and twisting it and lifting up when it comes to the members of the actual trans community. So, yeah. But there are people fighting back. There are people saying it. And what was notable also is that, the news of the one person in Alberta, even though that was not the core of that message, has now been read into, and it's in the legislature. So I still haven't seen much in the news about it, because you'd think this would be a major story.
Mm-hmm.
It still hasn't percolated up, and I don't think that she's being asked questions yet about this. And somebody does need to ask her a direct question.
I certainly think so.
About that. Yeah. A little... yeah, I could go into another monologue about how it's terrible and whatnot, but you know what I think. You know what I think on that. It's just, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's happened fast. And unless there's going to be change, there is going to be more, unfortunately. And that's a pretty sad thing. Maybe one of the last bits of news, because we are getting a little long in the tooth here for the show, is under the file under, but I thought Canada was supposed to be broken. Comes news that Canada's economy grew more than expected and dodged recession, according to that well-known liberal rag, the Financial Post. The Canadian economy has dodged a recession, and gross domestic product edged up in the fourth quarter last year, primarily due to higher exports of crude oil, that thing that apparently the Prime Minister is trying to kill, and reduced imports, making it likely the Bank of Canada will stick to its plan of holding interest rates when it makes its next announcement on March 6th. Real GDP rose by an annualized 1% for the 3 months ending December 31st, compared to the consensus of 0.8%, following a 0.5% decline in the third quarter, according to Statistics Canada. The agency had originally said GDP declined by an annualized 1.2% in the third quarter. So, in the third quarter, the first numbers said the economy went down by 1.2%, and technically the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline. Turns out that revised numbers showed that the decline wasn't 1.2%, but only 0.5% in the third quarter. And now fourth quarter numbers are coming in with growth at 1%. Now, this isn't like, oh my God, the economy is booming. Everybody go out and spend your money on, toys and stuff. But it's, it's close to stagnant. 1% is not, but it is positive. And the last number that was negative is still negative, but not as. GDP rose for the third consecutive year since 2020. So annually, the GDP rose for the year when the COVID-19 pandemic led to a contraction, but at its slowest pace since 2016, not counting 2020. Advanced information indicates real GDP rose 0.4% in January. So these are December numbers. Well, the whole third quarter entering this December, and early projections for January of this year is that GDP is rising again. So it's a momentum, seems to be a slight momentum turn from the 0.5% down in the third quarter. Now, not everything was relatively rosy. Final domestic demand, which is composed of expenditures on final consumption and gross fixed capital formation, those are big economic words that I'm not exactly sure what they mean, to be totally honest with you, dropped 0.2% in the fourth quarter after a 0.2% increase in the previous quarter. Quote, growth appears to have been driven largely by an easing of previous supply constraints, helping exports and car sales rather than necessarily an improvement in domestic demand, Andrew Grantham, an economist at CIBC Capital Markets, said. He continues to predict the Bank of Canada's first interest rate will take place in June. TD Economics senior economist James Orlando said, quote, the economy showed some life in the final quarter, with consumers who had pared back on spending for much of the year deciding to be busy, quote, driving around in their new cars and filling shopping malls during the holiday season. He said a return to growth in the fourth quarter after 2 quarters of effective no growth was expected, but the economic narrative hasn't changed. High interest rates are weighing on economic growth, and GDP per capita has declined in 5 of the last 6 quarters. Quote, we think the wheels are in motion for this to come through the data in the coming months and have penciled in the first rate cut for June. The increase in GDP was too small to prevent a 6th consecutive decline in the output on a per capita basis as population growth continues to surge higher, Royal Bank of Canada economist Nathan Jansen said. Exports of goods and services rose 1.4% in the fourth quarter after a 0.3% drop in the third quarter. This was driven by a 6.2% rise in crude oil and crude bitumen exports. 6.2% rise in crude oil.
Wow.
But that damn thing was trying to kill our industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imports, however, declined by 0.4% during the same period. So after rising 3.6%. So our exports went up by 6.2 and our imports declined by 0.4. And I'm guessing that's not just oil. Yes, exactly. Not just oil, it's other stuff. Due to lower imports of vehicles and their parts. Household spending also increased 0.2% in the fourth quarter after a 0.1% drop in the previous quarter. However, investment in housing was down 0.4% in the quarter, making the 6th decline in the past 7 quarters, Statistics Canada said. Despite more activity in new construction and renovations, the resale market weakened, the agency said. And let's see, what else do we have here? Business investment declined for the 6th time over the past 7 quarters, with investment in non-residential structures falling by 3%. In addition, employee compensation rose 0.8% for the quarter, which the agency said was the slowest growth rate since the second quarter of 2020. So there you go. So overall, the economy is doing well. What everybody, if you keep on hearing that term, soft landing, it seems that exactly if basically we had a 0.5 in the last quarter and we're up to 1, and it keeps staying around 1 and starts slowly going up, that will have been the actual definition of what a soft landing is. Things were going bad and we were risking going into a deep recession. We made some, you know, decisions that did cause some strain in terms of raising the interest rates that quickly, because it was the fastest rise of interest rates, I think, in history.
Oh yeah.
Or history. In living history, at least. That
In our lifetimes.
the increases that happened with the Bank of Canada, but they made it so that the worst that we had was a 0.5% decline in one quarter, which is the very definition of a soft landing. So it seems that for all the talk of Conservatives about the Prime Minister having completely destroyed and gutted and ruined the economy, it seems that he, and wanting to fire the Governor of the Bank of Canada, it seems that both of them acting independently, because government is not supposed to influence Bank of Canada policy,
Yeah, they
have
can't.
made the right decisions in order to ensure that we did have the soft landing that everybody tries to get in these situations, but doesn't really actually succeed. And we also have to count on the fact that because the United States is our largest trading partner, and again, as we say, right, when the United States sneezes, we catch pneumonia.
Yes.
In the United States, their inflation rate is down to about 2.4, which
So
is
pretty.
around the area where Bank of Canada would really like to get. I think our last one came in at 2.9
2.9.
for overall inflation and 3.2 for inflation not counting gas. So we can maybe hope as the United States goes, so do we. So that looks augurs well for the next coming months, that our inflation rate should be going down well and getting closer. We're in the 2 to 3% range that the Bank of Canada likes, but they would like to get us close to 2% as possible. So if we got to 2.4, I'm sure the governors of the overall governors of the Bank of Canada would be very, 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 very happy with that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Very happy with that. It wouldn't be 2, but they'll take it and be happy with that.
One, right?
Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of other stuff, but because we took some time to talk about the homeless issue and military stuff, which is cool because I've wanted to have the military discussion for a long time. It's just, finding, because that, again, not my wheelhouse.
Well, and that's
finding
it. Yeah.
someone that can speak to that.
I have a fair bit of knowledge because, I grew up with it, but
Right.
I want somebody who lived it, literally lived it, served on the battlefield, was there. And Army Kris is that guy. So yeah, well, he's going to prop in from time to time on Friday mornings, which I think is great because he one of the things he said I thought was cool. He goes, "I love this engaging conversation." I'm like, yeah, that's what we want, is engaging conversation.
Yeah. And it's not like we're afraid to delve into topics that are dark and messy.
No,
but you don't have to be aggressive and confrontational about it.
no.
There's no need, which is why the other day when we were talking about, when we're talking about more controversial figures that are involved in politics, whether or not we would have them on the show or not, that's one of the things, right? These are people that I'd be happy to meet in a bar, to sort of like have a coffee with and whatnot, let's talk. But there's a vibe and a culture that we're trying to establish through the show where we can have meaningful and engaging conversation. Exactly. As Kit Michael's saying here, engaging conversations, even if our opinions differ, is healthy.
Yes.
But having engaging conversations and, okay, at the very least, saying, in a conversation, if you can at least say, you know what, I can understand how you see it that way. Because I don't.
Yeah.
And here's my take. Yes, but I can understand how you see it that way. When you have engaging now that assumes that both parties are speaking or have different perspectives, but they're both speaking in good faith, right? And then are not torquing and twisting, because you can look at a set of data and say, well, my interpretation of the data is this, well, my interpretation of the data is that, and both interpretations are reasonable, even though you're coming at them from different sides, right? It's what I say, when I'm talking about the difference between spin and just outright lying. right? Spin is true.
hmm
It's maybe not the full truth. It's maybe looking at just a portion of the truth instead of all of it. Focus over here, not over here, but it still is true.
Right.
It just isn't pull it out of your ass and thrown in there or said just to say something that's contradictory or just to throw someone off. It actually is true. So when you're having an engaging conversation and you're coming at it from different perspectives, like we just had a conversation with Chris, right, who identifies as a conservative. I don't identify as a conservative, but when we were talking about Kit Cass, he identifies as a progressive conservative.
Mhm.
Like this, in my heart, if we're talking about like true progressive conservatism, is where we're being fiscally responsible, spending our money wisely
Mhm.
on the things that we do need to spend them on. Right? We don't delay investments. We're prepared to take on debt for things. If there's a hole in the roof, we don't wait until we save enough money. We like take out a loan and fix the hole in the roof because you don't want to ruin the foundation
Mhm.
when the rains are coming. So I believe in all that kind of stuff, but I believe in fiscal responsibility so that we do have more money to spend on stuff
Right.
like to fix homelessness and whatnot. Actual progressive conservative, I am one.
Well, and Chris is too, because remember what he said. Homelessness, poverty is a policy choice in this country. This is a guy who wants to fix this problem too. And again, progressive conservatives and liberals are so close on that middle line. I mean,
Right.
we're centimeters apart, truthfully.
Right.
And I'm not identifying as either, by the way.
Yeah, but the difference is more in terms of like your approach to the economy in that sense, how much intervention you want in the business world and how much you're willing to tax and what types of taxes, um, taxes that the consumers have a choice in how much of it they're going to pay by their choices versus a tax that gets applied heavy-handed and universally and you don't have a choice, right? So, and those types of things, right? How much regulation versus how much non-regulation, that type of stuff. But those are just like minor differences in philosophy, right?
Yes.
You're still agreeing on the core principles where we still want to arrive at the same goal. We just want to take different routes to get here. What we have with conservatives these days is completely different. Without what we want to have with conservatives these days is, let us get our hands on the public purse and we will divert money.
Well, remember when we had Charles Adler on the show about a year ago, May, I think it was? Because I still had my beard at the time. And one of the things Charles said was he identified as a progressive conservative, and he said one of the policies, one of the fiscal policies that we had at the time was let's create programs that take care of the people that need to be taken care of and take care of them properly. But over here, let's save a little bit of money so that when a thing like a pandemic comes along, we have money to cover the costs that will be endured to keep people safe. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah. And since we're speaking about money, the Alberta budget came down yesterday, and Danielle Smith announced that there was some surplus and that she was taking about $2 billion of that surplus and put it in the Heritage Fund and still leaving about a $500 million surplus projected.
But don't get sick because you won't get into the emergency room.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I'm not understanding why she couldn't have taken $1 billion of that and put a little more into hospitals and have some for the salary negotiations. But she has made a decision that putting $2 billion in the Heritage Savings Trust so that the government of Alberta can gain the interest on that and reap it so that they can use it for something else after 2050, assuming that everybody else holds and sticks to that plan, is more important than paying people a fair wage now while there's an affordability crisis going on now and fulfilling her promise of giving people an income tax cut during the height of the affordability crisis, which is now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
yeah. Make it make sense, please.
I'm not sure. Putting money aside for a rainy day is always a good idea, but you can't go around the country for a full year saying, oh my God, the carbon tax is killing people and we have an affordability crisis. Choose to do absolutely nothing to help your people while expecting Ottawa to do it all, while expecting the rest of Canadian taxpayers, all the taxpayers that live in the 9 other provinces and 3 territories, to be shipping you money, and you taking in that money that you would expect to get for that and saying, you know what, yeah, we're going to put that in a little account and save that up for us. Spend your damn money, or put in place a provincial sales tax and save that money. But stop this thing that conservative provincial governments in Alberta seem to think that they have this God-given right of having the rest of the country subsidize their 0% sales tax, and them wanting to put money in a heritage savings fund trust rather than spending money on the stuff that needs to be spent now, but then coming to Ottawa and the rest of us for the things that needs to be spent now and say, give us more money. Can I has more money, please? I'm not sure that I don't know if the rest of Canada has caught on yet, or I shouldn't say rest of Canada, but all of Canada except for Alberta has caught on yet that that's what's going on. But that is what's going on. And I saw something in the news the other day that says, despite the fact that they have a 0% provincial sales tax that all of us are subsidizing and are throwing money in the Alberta Heritage Savings Fund, which leaves a gap in funding other stuff that all of us are subsidizing, for all those riches, they are the province that is spending the least on providing education.
Yeah, by a
Now,
large margin, actually.
I don't know about you, but it seems to me that if the rest of us, or all of us, are contributing to subsidize that Alberta advantage, so-called, the least you can freaking do is make sure that you're investing in education enough so that we have people that are highly educated that could get high-paying jobs and contribute to the tax base. Maybe the least you can do.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking and taking and taking and taking. Because if we're subsidizing all of that and you're not putting the money into education anyway, then what the hell? And we're buying them a pipeline. Yeah, it's Alberta freeloading. I call it the Alberta taking advantage. At some point, we need to wise up. Just saying.
Yeah.
Albertans, this is not about you.
No, it's not.
This is about your government. It's about your government. Albertans are fine.
Your government's bad.
Your government is bad. Yeesh. God.
Bit of an understatement there if you think about it, right? I mean, bad, really bad, very, very bad.
Right. And we're still talking again in this overall context where they want the pharmacare money because the people couldn't manage to buy Tylenol. So they trust us to get insulin and birth control stuff.
I don't trust you.
Yeah. And then you have these other things going on. Says, well, why is Quebec getting the option to opt out? It's like this. Maybe it's because Quebec has had a pharmacare plan since 1996.
Yeah, it might have something to do with it.
Like the same thing with the daycare thing, why they get the money instead of new spaces, because they've had the daycare program for the last 20 years. We're actually borrowing an idea that they put in place in their own lab.
And recognized the benefits to all of society.
Yeah. So they've put in money for the last 20 years. They get to opt out with financial compensation. They have an established program. If you haven't done it, maybe you want to opt in, because I don't imagine that there's a galaxy, universe, dimension, continent, planet, postal code, and area code where one province alone can buy insulin and birth control, contraceptive medication, or the whole suite of those alone cheaper than the federal government can buy it in bulk and then sell it down back to you. You could give it a go, but
good luck.
If I remember how economies of scale work, it's cheaper to buy enough for 40 million than it is to buy for 5.
4.8 or whatever.
Right. So there's absolutely no financial benefit whatsoever.
Alberta's population has grown by 1,000 people since Wednesday. Ontario's has grown by 3,000 since Wednesday, and the country has grown by 6,000.
Woohoo!
40,916,140 people living in Canada right now.
I like it.
We'll hit 41 million by Canada Day easily. I mean, in 2 days we grew by 6,000.
Indeed. All right, Mr. Gris. Oh yes, there was that one other thing. Fuck.
One other thing.
Pierre Poilievre had a little press availability yesterday. I don't think I'm going to show it.
No.
It was. I mean, okay. A lot of his press availabilities are bad.
Mm-hmm.
This one wasn't bad because he decided to fight with journalists and whatnot. It was literally just bad. It's more like, oh my God, this thing happened and I need to switch channels. So I believe while the vote on pharmacare was happening, he stepped out and went to the mic, called an emergency snap press conference, for which he was over 15 minutes late. Because I was waiting. And then he came out with a big stack of documents and said, we just got these documents. These are documents that we asked the government to give to us 4 times. 4 times. And we finally got them now. And they were documents about what happened in that Winnipeg lab where we study viruses and whatnot. We have 2 labs in Canada that are level 4, where the most dangerous ones, can be there. And one of them is in Winnipeg. Now, there was somebody there that was working there that was hired in 2003. And in 2019, I believe it was, they were walked out of the place because it seems that they had been doing, sharing some information with the government of China that they should not have been sharing. And then, so that was in 2019. And then in 2021, I guess the report came down and now they finally got their hands on it to make it public. And they're looking at the report and they're basically trying to spin it as the Prime Minister of Canada directly kind of put this guy in place and opened the doors wide open for the government of the Chinese Communist Party to come right in and have access to all of that data, trying to portray it as if it was biochemical warfare agents that are being studied, which is not at all the case. We're studying viruses and stuff like that, not how to make biochemical weapons out of it. And basically all that, and the insinuation, because he didn't say it outright, was in exchange for the government of China helping the Liberal Party of Canada in the 2021 election get elected. And then he tried to link in the fact that the government of Canada was working with the government of China in the early days of looking at a COVID vaccine to see if we can develop one jointly together, and tried to tie that to that, even though this stuff happened after that person, anything with COVID, after that person was walked out.
Yeah.
So it couldn't have been that. Now, and what he did something really interesting because, he's doing his 5 questions thing and he's usually snapping with people, with journalists. Well, this time he brought in 4 other people with him. He took 2 questions and then he had each one of the other 4 parade up to the mic to make a statement. And none of them added anything new to what Pierre Poilievre said. So it was basically the same statement made with different words 5 times in a row, 4 additional times with the other 4, so that each of those MPs could get a clip that they could then publicize on their
Mhm.
own individual sites. And then Pierre walked up for another couple of bits and took a couple of other questions. The journalists were completely unimpressed because they don't even think they asked him a question about his big revelation that essentially that the prime minister allegedly opened the door and allowed for the Chinese Communist Party to come in and steal our information so that they could develop biochemical weapons that could be used against us, all in exchange for getting their help to win the 2021 election. And well, here's the thing about so the presser was completely embarrassing. It was a total waste of time.
Mhm.
And the thing is that if we remember the 2021 election, right? We had ours just before the United States,
Mhm.
right? And um, we had this lady called Meng Wanzhou.
Mhm.
Anybody remembers her?
I do.
That we arrested at the Vancouver airport and that we kept under house arrest for greater than 1,000 days
Yes.
in order to respect our extradition treaty with the United States of America. And we had some legal processes going on here. And during that 1,000 days, greater than, everything that the government of China, the Chinese Communist Party, did was an attempt to kneecap us.
Mhm.
They would go to the press and say, Canada needs to stop meddling in our internal affairs. Their basic go-to answer. We never did anything wrong. Stop meddling in our internal affairs. And they put sanctions on a whole bunch of stuff like our canola, but not our pork because it seems that they needed it for the big holidays over there. But when it's something that they didn't really need or could get for somewhere else, they started importing a whole bunch of duties on that. And then we made the decision to pull out of Huawei. And well, essentially all our phone companies did that really. And then we just finished it. And that made them mad. And they kept on just trying to, destroy our economy or affect us in some way or ruin the reputation of the prime minister in the international press. And apparently, we're supposed to believe they did all of that for greater than 1,000 days because they wanted to help the Liberals to win in 2021.
Mhm.
When at the same time all of this was going on, the Conservatives were basically all over the media going, Canada, just roll over. Give China what it wants. Why didn't we just let her go through rather than arresting her the first time? We should have just let her go to the United States and let the United States do that. It was their problem, not respect our treaty or not. So it seems to me that if the government of China, the Chinese Communist Party,
Mhm.
who watches the same TV we watch,
Mhm.
in that sense, sees the same clips, and is seeing that the Conservative Party of Canada is telling the government of Canada,
Roll
today,
over.
which is Liberal, who is resisting the government of China's attempt to impose China law in
Mhm.
Canada,
Mhm.
saying, hey, just roll over, give them what they want. Why are we enforcing this extradition treaty anyway? We should just betray our partners in the United States and, just send her back. Seems to me that I don't know if I was a dictatorial government who was trying to influence and place decisions elsewhere. I would think they're my guys.
Well, I mean, 2 and 2 usually equals 4.
So yeah, I'm finding it really hard to believe this thing where they're turning around and saying, well, yes, because he gave them access to our lab information in exchange. First, you must do me a favor, though. Exchange for getting China help to win the next election when you are the people that are telling and telegraphing, hey, if we become the next government, we'll just let her go. So we didn't let her go, and then the Liberals won the election, and then, well, Joe Biden won in the United States, and I think it was like a day or two after Joe Biden won, it says, well, crap, Trudeau won again, and Joe Biden is not Trump, so he's not going to put some pressure or put some more tariffs or punch down on Canada. So I guess, well, we're going to let go of the two Michaels.
Yeah.
We're just going to let go of the two Michaels. And just boom. all of a sudden it was done because China didn't want to be in it for another 4 years. But we're supposed to believe from PP that China wanted the Liberals to win that last election.
Yeah.
He really thinks we're dumb.
Well, they're playing us for fools.
And exactly. And Harper was the one who signed the secret 30-year deal, and then signed China. Suddenly China was everywhere across Canada.
And where was he when he signed that deal? Oh, that's right. Vladivostok, Russia.
Russia. Yeah.
Signed a secret deal in secret in Russia with China, tying us to them for 31 years.
Yeah. But we're supposed to believe now in 2024 that the Prime Minister of Canada rolled out the red carpet, said, "Hey, Chinese Communist Party, come and look
Who
at
sold off the wheat board?
Saudi Arabia.
No, who sold it?
Oh, who sold off? Yeah. Okay, who bought it? Yeah, Harper as well. And Nixon sold that to China.
Yeah.
And was paving the way for Huawei to come in and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Kitsasi, yeah, it was signed in Russia. The FIPA deal was signed in Russia.
Yeah, I think it was Vladivostok or something like that. Yeah,
Vladivostok.
It was signed in Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's all very suspect.
Very suspect. So, yeah, that's the conservative bullshit of the day. And apparently that didn't really go anywhere because 2 hours later, PP was on Twitter bitching about a whole other subject. It's like, oh, so I guess your little presser didn't really go well for you that you already have to move the goalposts and change the channel to another subject, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody bid on that whatsoever. So, yeah, it was basically this farmer care thing is going on and we need some counter programming. So here we go. And, the news on ArriveCan wasn't really helpful to conservatives all that day long, with the whole D&D revelation and the fact that CG was once called something else and they had given contracts with them. So, yeah, they just changed the channel. Okay, we're not going to talk about ArriveCan anymore. We're going to talk about that Winnipeg lab thing. And we just got this breaking information, even though we all saw the news articles in 2019 when the person got carted out of the lab, and then again in 2021.
Breaking news from 5 years ago.
Yes. So, yeah, they're trying to repackage some old stuff, which is pretty bad. The last little thing I have here is it seems that Conservative Party members are being asked to weigh in on what Pierre Poilievre has been saying with regard to transgender stuff. And Michelle Lanceman, the lesbian who seems to forget she's lesbian at the most convenient times, basically said, "I think the leader has made his common sense conservative position very clear, and our caucus stands by it alongside most Canadians." After being asked specifically about Poilievre's assertion that trans women should not be permitted to access women's bathroom, she said, "He's been very clear about the position, and that is the position of the Conservative Party and the common sense conservative position." Like, again, what do you think about it? He's been very clear about the position, and that is the position of the Conservative Party and the common sense conservative position. Literally said nothing. That's basically fuck you and political ease. And then they wanted to ask Michelle Rempel Garner, and apparently, she broke out into a sprint and tried to get away. And then,
Michael Chong
ran along with her. And,
it was Scott Aitchison who said he had no comment.
Yeah, Scott Aitchison. Well, that was the third one, yeah. They ran alongside her to try and ask her. And apparently she was then saying, well, yeah, of course I support trans people, and then ran away again. And she's been having some trouble with the party because the party has been wanting to kick her out because they think that she's a little too pro. But she had an opportunity to stand up for us, and she didn't. She ran. And then Scott Aitchison himself said as well that he didn't have a comment. And then he was pressed on it. And then when he was asked, he basically said, Aitchison, I'm going to read from the Hill Times here. Aitchison, who was unhappy about being characterized as having been one of the more centrist candidates in the 2022 Conservative leadership race, said he considers himself to be a small C conservative who believes in smaller government, getting out of people's way, and a government that actually provides the basic services that it's meant to provide and do it efficiently and do it effectively. Asked if that meant he also believes trans people should be able to live without government interference, he paused briefly and then replied, "Absolutely, I think they do. That's the whole idea."
So I want to address this statement here from James. There's a legit position keeping male-bodied prisoners from women's prisons, and it's not an all-or-nothing debate. I have worked in a prison, spent months working in one. Kingston Penitentiary, as a matter of fact, back when it was still a functioning prison. And there were female-bodied persons that were there, that I saw, that I met and spoke to. So, by the way, that goes back to 2003. So that's 21 years ago when I worked there.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw while I was working there.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? Again, we keep on looking at people talk about this a lot. A transgender man in a male prison or transgender female in a men's prison, they get raped by everyone.
Yes. It happens all
In
the
the prison. There's a story I just read about some person, I think it was maybe in the United States, but claimed that she had been raped at least 1,000 times.
Mhm.
And we get back to the same principle I talked about the other day. If there are only two genders, male and female, then those who are transgender have to be considered male or female. And we put them where they are in the spaces that we have. Now, maybe that means putting a transgendered female in their own wing in a women's prison.
Possibly.
Yes. But if you put them in a male prison, yes, they are going to get raped.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have, regardless of what your position is on this, if we're not going to start building specific prisons for transgender people, so if we're not going to agree that there are more than two genders, we either have to agree that there are more than two genders and then build all the infrastructure and whatnot for the other genders because they all have equal rights, or you got to consider enlarge the definition of what is male and what is female and make the people that other people want to consider other fit into one of those categories and arrange the space to make it happen. But you can't keep on saying that people are other and then have nothing for them and put them in situations that are dangerous for them too. So, and that's the conversation we need to have, and people are not willing to put the money behind the whole infrastructure. But if you're not going to put the infrastructure, then you have to consider transgender men and women, either men or women, and not a category that's other, and then arrange yourself in consequence to keep everybody safe. Those are the only two solutions. All right, Kits and Kubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you liked what we do, because we love making it for you. If you don't want to miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. If you scan that QR code underneath my chin, that will bring you to our pod page. That's podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click subscribe there, when we have something fresh off of the bandwidth, it will come directly to you. If you'd like to support us in other ways, go to our YouTube site, True North Eager Beaver Media, and make like Kit Elaine and smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons. We appreciate that, and that helps us a lot. Helps us out a lot too. Sorry, I'm tripping over my tongue as we're ending. And if you'd like to support us in another way, the QR code by Mr. Glizzy's head brings us to a coffee page. That's coffeeko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And there you can make a contribution to our emergency hydration fund to keep us moist so that we can make this show for you. Thank you so very much, because democracy is something that you do. Please, if you can, pressure anyone in the Hamilton area, especially on city council, to make the right decision to house the homeless, and maybe even get them before 1:30 this afternoon to reverse themselves on wanting to break up the encampment. That would be good, because there's always public pressure always helps. So anything that you can do on that, we would help. We would be we would be very grateful for that. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom, please?
I'm afraid I don't. I'm late for a meeting. I got to go.
Okay, all right. All right, kids. Have a beaverific weekend. Be kind to and gentle with yourself. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.